This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with James O'Brien.
A lot of people getting in touch to suggest that it's actually 10 o'clock and not 11 o'clock, as I said just a few moments ago. I'll have you know, a taxi driver told me that it was, in fact, a few minutes to 11 just a moment ago, and therefore I'm perfectly happy to stake my entire reputation upon that being the truth. For the avoidance of doubt, this is nice from Noel. Please tell James O'Brien that he got the time wrong. I say again, Noel, I did not. A taxi driver told me. It is just approaching 4 minutes after 10. I don't want to mess up anybody's morning any more than I do ordinarily. Do you know what my job is most days? It's not to wind you up, of course not, or to tickle you, metaphorically speaking. Sometimes my job feels as if, and I don't know why I feel this way, because not everybody who does this for a living does. I always feel a responsibility or an urge to ask you a slightly different question about the same subject than I asked you last time. Sometimes we get it absolutely right. I'm very proud of some of those moments, for example, when we're talking about long-term sickness, particularly mental health. The difference between can't go to school or can't go to work and won't go to school and won't go to work. There's a huge misunderstanding, sometimes a little bit willful, sometimes even performative. But it's a really unhelpful misunderstanding when you talk about anxiety or when you talk about depression, to think that you can just pull your socks up, and those of us who haven't suffered from it have anything interesting to say to those who have. It's the difference between having a sore ankle and having a broken ankle, and the failure to understand that probably contributes to the actual scale of the problem. Do you see why? Because you are not going to solve a problem if you subscribe to the school of thought that I had a stressful journey to work today, therefore I know what anxiety is. You're not going to solve the problem while the conversation is being conducted within those parameters, within that space. It took me years to work that out, but it's blooming obvious when you think about it. We've got a big problem with absenteeism or health in this country, and conducting the conversation as if they're all swinging the lead or taking the mickey, and all that you really need to do to overcome anxiety and depression is have a fisherman's friend and give your head a wobble, then you're going to make things worse, not better. Here's someone who doesn't suffer from anxiety or depression to tell you how they think people with anxiety and depression should overcome their problems. He used to run Asda or something. Okay, great. Has he ever suffered from these conditions? No, never. Any diagnosis? No, not at all. Does he even think he suffered? No. No, but he gets a bit cross sometimes, and he got sad when his dog died. So he understands perfectly what anxiety is on a clinical level, and indeed manic depression. It just strikes me that finding a way into a conversation sometimes is really, really important. And of course it's not helped by these increasingly prevalent and prominent organisations that use very carefully massaged statistics to create completely different stories. For example, reading about new claims for anxiety today is somehow tied to the amount of time that Labour has been in power. So if you've got, 633,000 people claiming PIP for anxiety or mood disorders, for mental illness, apparently the headline that you need to do, or the headline that you need to write, is to work out what proportion of those people are new and try to somehow blame it all on Labour, as if they have any influence whatsoever over the criteria under which PIP is awarded. That's just really lazy and boring. Also, the figure I read this morning of 250 claims approved each day doesn't account for or doesn't include people who've actually moved off PIP, people who have reached a point in their lives where they no longer need, or they would no longer pass the assessment in order to receive a means-tested benefit that is not for unemployed people. It's for everybody. An awful lot of people need PIP in order to do the job that they've got. But you see what I mean? The nuance doesn't land, does it? In the land of lazy tabloids and swan-munching immigrants, the nuance, the detail, the evidence, the facts don't matter. I was nearly late for work today. I went down the park to paint a St. George's cross on a swan. I stole that joke off one of my Blue Sky correspondents. Credit where it's due. I therefore focus, or try to get you to focus, on substantive answers and substantive solutions to real problems. I don't think you can argue with the head of the British Chambers of Commerce when she points out that there is a health crisis in the UK workforce impacting very negatively on our economy. She is not describing a fraud crisis, a scrounging crisis, or a scam crisis. She is describing a health crisis. Regardless of a company's size, location, or industry, they are struggling to find people with the skills they need, but crucially, and the bit we don't talk about, they are losing the ones that they have. I didn't know this. Did you know this? 300,000 people every year are leaving the workforce owing to ill health, that they are no longer capable of continuing in the job that they've got. Part of the reason for that will be that the employers do not have anything close to adequate in place to help people stay in work. So what is the question we can ask today to actually shed some light upon a serious and tricky subject? I know what the question is. Have you ever met anyone who's taking the mickey? Why do they need all that? Oh, what is anxiety anyway? Here's a bloke who's never had it to tell you that it's not really something that should be taken seriously. And while we're at it, ADHD, poof, what's that all about? So we know what that looks like. It's a very well ploughed furrow, but nothing changes. I've been listening to people talk about sickness, unemployment and scrounging for 20 years since I started in this job, and guess what? They never fix anything. They don't want to. Same sort of people that deny that poverty exists until governments introduce VAT on school fees, and then suddenly it's time to get the violins out and recognise the real victims of economic inequality in this country. An almost non-existent cohort of parents who are being priced out of the private school market by the introduction of VAT, so that you don't get a special deal on your school fees, which makes it less tax than buying something. When do you pay VAT on food, Keith? Is it when you eat it in the hot food so if you eat a steak bake in Greggs, you're going to be paying VAT on it, but not on your children's school fee? Anyway, I digress. Thank you, Keith. My steak bake correspondent. 300,000 people leaving the workforce every year. And in the context of the G7, in percentage terms, we have a higher percentage. I think it's 7% of our workforce are on long-term leave, long-term sick leave. They are ill. Well, they're not even on sick leave because they're out of work. And that's a significant number of people. Germany is 5.3%. Canada is 5%. Here's the Daily Mail headline. I mean, it is just extraordinary. 250 a day claim benefits for anxiety under Labour. Why did we never see these headlines when it was not a Labour government? The total is 650,000 pretty much overall. Then the numbers per day must have been pretty high under previous governments as well. But in Daily Mail land, that doesn't merit a headline. I imagine there's a think tank, a so-called think tank, a stink tank behind all of this, massaging the numbers and tying them to the politics in an attempt to pursue a pretty transparent agenda. But the G7 numbers are not an agenda. They're not part of an agenda. They're not even an opinion, are they? They're counting. 7% of our workforce is off work due to long-term sickness. In Canada, the figure is 5%. In Japan, it's 3.5%. Italy, which perhaps being southern European, some people may somewhat unfairly think that the Dolce Vita lends itself more to not being in work. But that's falling into the trap of thinking that it's a choice rather than something that is inflicted upon a person. Germany, 5.3%. So what are we getting wrong? 0345 6060 973 is the number that you need. What are we getting wrong? Why? So there's, in a way, there are three questions here, and I don't want to confine the conversation to people who are directly affected by the issue. I want everybody to have a view. Employers perhaps will have a view. Why does everyone pick me up on the way I pronounce Canada? How do you pronounce? I say Canada. What do you say? Canada. Canada. I think I say Canada. Canada. Well, it's so odd, the things that you pick me up on. I couldn't say the word cigarette for years without you complaining about the way I said the word. I'm not weird linguistically. I'm just a normal man. I'm just an innocent man. I'm just innocent men with normal men. What's wrong with the way I pronounce? Anyway, I'll try. Stop having a go. I tried that. Canada. Why are we higher? What are we getting wrong when it comes to helping people who are poorly carry on working? That's a really important question. And listen, I accept there are some people swinging the lead and there are some scroungers and there are some scammers. But if you manage to find all of them and horsewhip them to work, we would still have a big problem. And that is what I'm interested in today, okay? So your Auntie Doris's window cleaner's daughter who's got 5 kids and earns more in benefit, yada, yada. Yeah, great, fine. It's a given. Ring the breakfast show. I want to know actual facts about actual problems, and the most obvious way into this is pretty simply, why are we doing so badly? Why are we letting down so many people? Okay, 0345 6060 I have, and I sound a little bit unpleasant when I say this, and I am conscious of that, and I'm kind of saying sorry, but I'm not going to change. I have a bit of an allergy to radio phone-ins where we just list our ailments. Do you know what I mean? There is an old adage in this industry, I think it's on a Clive Bulls, that it's easy to make the phones ring on a radio phone-in programme. You just say, is there anybody old out there feeling poorly? And boom, your switchboard will light up like the Trafalgar Square Christmas tree, but you will not take an interesting call in the space of 24 hours of asking the same question. And I want to guard against that. But I do want to know why you left the workforce. Because it seems to me that if 300,000 people every year are leaving the workforce, then once again, the idea that they're doing so because the life of Riley that you can live on unemployment benefits has proved to have an irresistible lure is pointless, dangerous, and daft. And yet, once again, it's the narrative that has dominated this discourse for decades now. So why did you leave the workforce? And if we were to knit those two questions together, what are we getting so wrong, which anyone can answer? Why did you leave the workforce, which only you can answer? And I hope that you do, because I'm on a hiding to nothing if you don't. What could have kept you in it? That seems to me to be at the heart of Siobhan Haviland's plea this morning, the Director General of the British Chambers of Commerce. What could we be doing differently as a country or as employers? What could we be doing differently to reduce the number of people who are leaving the workforce owing to ill health? What would be better? And it may involve having a little look at other countries, indeed the other G7 countries, most obviously, Germany, Canada, the United States of America, France, Italy and Japan. Why have they got lower figures than us? Why are fewer people in almost all comparable economies leaving the workforce due to ill health? I mean, are we working too hard? Are people being pushed too hard? Are we not getting the support? Do you snigger when you see somebody in the office being delivered a standing up desk because they've got a bad back and you think, oh, get over yourself? Whereas in fact, that person's working life is probably being extended by dint of the fact that they've got a form of physiotherapy going on in the workplace and the employer has accommodated it. Occupational health, all of the things that sometimes perhaps would get filed under touchy-feely red tape by the right wing would actually, I don't know, I'm thinking out loud. Why are we so bad at this? So there's the meta question, which anyone can answer. What are we getting wrong? And then there's the very personal point about you and why you are one of the 300,000 strong army of people who leave the workforce every year. You know, again, that the traditional narrative of conversations about benefits is profoundly unhelpful because it's framed in tabloid terms and designed to make you hate your neighbour. But it is unsustainable. in many ways to have millions and millions of people outside of the workforce, particularly when I tell you about the other story today involving schools closing because we're not having enough kids to fill them anymore. So thank goodness nobody is trying to make enormous political capital out of demonising people prepared to come here and work. That would be a double disaster, wouldn't it? Whew, sigh of relief. So there it is. Anyway, I don't think you need any more from me. Why are we so bad at this? Mark suggests it's because all the immigrants are injuring themselves chasing swans. Could be. So why did you leave the workforce, despite really, really not wanting to? And why are the numbers of people doing that so much higher in this country than almost everywhere else? 18 minutes after 10 is the time. I'll give you a quick heads up. He's been in the news a lot this week, possibly for reasons that he would rather not have been, given the unconscionable, dishonest, racist attack upon the Mayor of London by the President of the United States of America. Sadiq Khan will be here tomorrow taking your calls. So if you want to ask him about that, or indeed anything else, you will know what to do. I don't actually know what time it is yet. I think I'll keep it under my hat. It's definitely tomorrow, and that is a fact. Eleanor, the producer, told me that, not just the taxi driver.
James O'Brien on LBC.
It is 20 minutes after 10. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. Why are we so much worse than comparable countries at keeping people in work when they get ill? And why did you leave? Brian is in Manchester to kick things off. Brian, what would you like to say?
James, good morning. Thank you for taking my call. Long time listener, first time call. I'm just about to read your book, How They Ruin the Country. So I look forward to that with some interest.
Just in case anyone is minded to follow your lead, it's called How They Broke Britain, but that was the alternative.
Thank you very much.
That was the alternative title.
It's actually looking at me on my bookshelf,
Spooky.
and I've got two for the price of one in Waterstone, so you're obviously doing ever so well. James, I don't often agree with your politics, but listen, we are what we are,
yes.
And I like listening to you as much as I like watching other.
Well, do you know what? When you finish that book, we won't disagree about anything. But let's get right into the subject that we're talking about today.
Okay, so I was quite piqued this morning.
Yes.
I was quite intrigued by your conversation and so on and so on. My background, I'm 60 years old. I finished work about 15, 16 months ago due to a combination of health matters. I'm currently taking 15 medications. Most of it's physical health, from diabetes to arthritis, etc., etc. I worked for a lot of my career in education. I worked as a youth worker, and then I worked as an education welfare officer, which I enjoyed both for in different ways.
Yes.
I think, from my point of view, and I'm not saying I'm right, I think what I found incredibly hard and what drove me to a breakdown was incredibly poor management and targets, because a lot of my job was around attendance and punctuality. So, as I'm sure you're aware, government sets targets around persistent absence, this, that and the other. And the pressure to achieve them, particularly where I was and in the area I was absolutely phenomenal. If anything went wrong, can you go and sort it out? Can you go and sort it out? And if I hear the phrase, can you just, ever again, I will have to reach for a gun and some bullets. We
all carry stress differently, don't we?
Absolutely.
I think that's missing from a lot of the analysis. I don't suffer from this. I'm fine. I worked down a coal mine for 40 years. How can you be stressed just looking after kids with playing truant? But that's not the point. You are carrying that stress.
It is, and not only that. You know, some of the things that I saw and heard over the years were, it was awful. It was awful.
I believe
now there are other people who do and did what I do, and for some reason they say they're able to shake it off.
Yes.
I'm not so sure because it's at some point it will come out in some way. So if you turn it in on yourself, it generally turns into, depression, alcoholism, or whatever. If you turn it out, then you sound like you're constantly moaning and this, that, and the other.
You don't sound like that to me. But we live in a country where
we do.
People will try to depict what you're saying and how you're saying it as being a sign of work shyness or weakness. You're on PIP, are you?
Well, and there's speaking to that lovely lady that answered the phone earlier on, I have a private pension.
Yes.
I get a low rate of PIP, and I also get something called ESA. Now, to achieve PIP, which is a low rate, I had to apply for it twice. The first time I got knocked back.
So today's story, you are obviously a natural storyteller, Brian, but I've got loads of other callers waiting on the line as well.
No.
So you'll allow me to nudge things along a little bit. The narrative today is obviously designed to make everybody believe it's really easy to get. You know that's not true, I think.
Well, nonsense. Not in my not in my experience.
Yeah, but who cares about your experience? Because here's a bloke who's never applied for it, and he knows it's really easy.
Oh well, there you go.
That's how it works. I'm intrigued by what it is about my politics you don't agree with. But that's a conversation for another day. I mean, simply put, then, what could your workplace, what could your employer have done differently, and then you would still be at work today?
I mean, to be fair, they did some stuff, and
yes.
I did go to occupational health, this, that, and the other. For me, the issue was the person that was above me, who was an absolute. I won't use the word.
No, thank you.
That person wasn't nipped in the bud, despite my saying my concerns, this, that, and the other. And when I had to go to a hearing about this individual, the union person and all the other people in the table were horrified by the depth and the amount of nonsense that I had to put up with.
To paraphrase, I mean, you've got epic pressure. And you've got a toxic working environment, and as a consequence of that, you buckle. Whatever the correct word is, you have a breakdown. And that is why you are in the situation that you are currently in. And I suspect, very briefly, if you would, Brian, I suspect you hate being in the situation that you're currently in.
Despise it, absolutely despise it. I don't want to be at home getting under my wife's feet. I'd rather be out and. You know, this thing about this dignity in work, I used to think it was a bit of a, but there is I believe that there is things that having a purpose today, getting up, having a shower, putting your shirt and tie on, getting in.
Absolutely. And there it is. And of course that has been eroded over, well, I would argue, that has been eroded over the era of 0-hour contracts and austerity and all the rest of it, and pitiful wages and all those things that we're constantly told are necessary and inevitable in order to keep the economy turning around. But dignity in work seems to be one of the things that has been sacrificed. And I think Brian's experience will be a heck of a lot more common than your neighbour's window cleaner's daughter, who is claiming all the benefits under the sun and living in Ibiza. To paraphrase a Sun article that either has or hasn't been written yet. But Brian, take care. Let's go from Manchester to Birmingham. Ali's there. Ali, what would you like to say?
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, James. It's a pleasure talking to you first.
Thank you.
Always listen to what you say and quite follow you quite often. But one of the things...
Thank you. Cheers, I think.
It's nice to have someone...
Intentionally funny, Ali. I hope not unintentional. I mean, sometimes unintentional.
No, honestly, it's just a pleasure, I have to say.
What are we doing wrong in this country?
Canada right.
Yeah,
anyone says Canada right.
Canada. Why are we at the bottom of this league table, do you think, in the G7?
I think, look, I mean, I work in the railway. I'm a guard. I'm a safety critical. I mean, I've never claimed health benefits. I mean, I don't plan to, nor do I want to, because I believe, I'm going to work until I carry on. I mean, to provide for my kids and family.
Yes.
But as I was speaking to one of your colleagues earlier, as safety critical staff, we wear safety boots. We have to go work on the train. We're constantly, trains jigging around all over the place. At some points, I realised I'm getting feet problems now because I'm standing up a lot. We're wearing safety. We're standing up nearly 10 to 12 hours a day. And then I went to my occupational therapist saying, you know what, you need to get special, boots in. But then now I'm wearing my normal shoes. I can feel the pain. And at some point, I started thinking to myself, what is the solutions there for long term? And
it's really interesting, isn't it? Because it sounds on one level quite a prosaic experience, but actually there comes a point where you can't do a job that involves a lot of standing up. And that is the path that you might be on at the moment, but it's a path that could be made easier by proper interventions and a different approach from your employer or your union,
I
of
think
course.
that's what I'm looking at. I mean, at some points, I'm a person that's realist, and then we need to come up with solutions rather. We always think of the problems. No one sits there and say, let's think of solutions for a change. What can we do to make
that's
things
what we're
better?
doing today. That's what we're trying to do today.
One of the things I look at is work-life balance. I mean, the earlier caller said about having toxic environment. What if, they talk about 4 days a week working? And I think some people have experimented and it's come out positive. I mean, my wife works from home and she's a social worker, and she goes in when she can to do visits. And for her working from home, it's really helped her because she's got a health condition right now herself. But she doesn't need to take a lot of time off.
Just a bit more imagination. The idea that, and of course, all of these things, the Daily Mail has developed an analogy to all of these suggestions that we might do things a little bit differently from how we did them 50 years ago. So a little bit more working from home, possibly a 4-day week, particularly, I like that phrase, safety critical, working on the railways. We're lucky enough, many of you, I don't know about you, but many of your colleagues lucky enough to have a decent trade union which actually tries to improve the terms and conditions of their workforce.
I think a lot of people don't realise, one of the rules is, for example, we've got a 12-hour break, between shifts. Believe it or not, that is hard sometimes. When I'm tired, finish at midnight, and then trying to get up again to go work, so starting just after 12 in the afternoon, it's a challenge.
Of course it's a challenge, but a lot of people that have never faced that challenge, including the bloke that used to run Marks and Spencer's, will be adamant that them having a difficult commute into London one day is equally challenging. It's just as difficult as you having to endure all of the things that you have to endure. And it will shorten. I hope it doesn't, and you're obviously determined that it won't, but none of us have ultimate control over these things, as Brian perfectly demonstrated in Manchester. It will shorten potentially your working life, and if not yours, then one of your colleagues. It will shorten your working life, and you become one of the 300,000 people leaving the workforce with long-term illness. And we're not imagining people like Ali, or people who've had to work on their feet all day, and people who possibly need a bit of help with their obesity, because when you couple that with what they're doing, it's going to shorten their working life. We're all imagining people, well, if you read certain newspapers, you're imagining scroungers, and if you don't read certain newspapers, you're probably somewhat naively imagining people with really profound diseases. But it's not. It's just the little tweaks, the little downturns that mean you can't do that job anymore. Or you certainly can't do it 5 days a week. And this country does not accommodate. It does not address the problems. It just essentially waves goodbye and then starts moaning about gaps in the workforce and the cost of the benefits bill. This is really interesting. 10:32 is the time. A quick reminder of the double question. Why are we so bad at this in this country? I wonder if you've had an experience of an employer overseas or a foreign employer in this country who does things differently, who does things better, and why did you leave the workforce? Or, like Ali, just come at it from your own very personal angle. Thomas Watts is here now with your headlines.
James O'Brien on LBC.
35 is the time. My thanks to River for bringing this to my attention, and my thanks for River for actually unintentionally reminding me that the new series of Slow Horses has dropped, hasn't it? Or at least the first episode has. I won't be able to watch it tonight because Mrs. O'Brien is out with her friend. Oh, no. I can't watch it on my own. Do you have shows like that? Do you have shows that you can't watch on your own? You have to watch it together? So The Hack, I saw the first 2 episodes of last night. I really, really recommend that you see that. I'm not sure at this stage it's going to do quite the business for phone hacking and the incredible work of Nick Davies, a journalist who you've met on this programme on a number of occasions, that the post office drama did for that particular scandal. But it should. In a just universe, it should. But I'm going to go out on a limb here. And all of the individuals, institutions, newspapers, editors and owners involved in the disgusting phone hacking scandals, about which you probably don't know the full picture, are unlikely to go in as hard in their newspaper coverage telling you to watch it, as they did with Mr. Bates versus the Post. Just a little, I don't know, call me psychopathic? No, don't call me psychopathic, call me psychic. Well, you can call me psychopathic if you want, it's a free country, but call me psychic. I just don't think you're going to read in Rupert Murdoch's newspapers about how excellent this drama about Rupert Murdoch's newspapers breaking laws like it was going out of fashion and riding roughshod over people's lives. I just don't think they're going to go huge on it. Just a sneaking suspicion. Steve Pemberton plays Rupert Murdoch, which means he has a fellow alumnus, by the way, of the Manchester Youth Theatre, would you believe? Although it's fair to say his acting career's gone rather better than mine. He has, in the last few years, played Robbie Williams' dad in a film where Robbie Williams was portrayed as a chimpanzee, which I really liked, but no one else did. I think everyone agreed Steve Pemberton's performance was brilliant. He's played Robbie Williams' dad and Rupert Murdoch. That's not bad, is it? If those were the only two roles he'd played in the last couple of years, then he'd be doing okay. But of course, he's done loads more than that as well. I just want to do something, if I may, and I'm relying on the work of a chap called Ben Bamberg-Geiger, who you may have heard on the brilliant Radio 4 programme More or Less. And I am not as qualified as he is to do this, but my thanks to River for bringing it to my attention. It's very relevant to what we're discussing, and it's absolutely a contender for
missed information.
Thank you, Emily. So the headline that you have no doubt seen and possibly even heard on the radio, being parroted without any analysis or scrutiny, is that there's a record 6.5 million Brits on jobless benefits. And you sort of find yourself thinking, well, that's bad. That's really bad. But what you should be thinking is that actually true? Normally you'd file it under, that's not an opinion, that's just counting. But no, it turns out it's not really true at all, or certainly that it's not a record. And what this chap has done on his Substack, which is a pretty splendid outfit, by the way, Substack. I'm getting more and more into it, relying on it more and more for my journalism feed. What he has done is dig into this claim, which originates with the former editor of the Spectator magazine. They're in the news again for reasons I'll share with you shortly. Fraser Nelson is the chap's name, and I don't think you can blame him particularly for having got it so horribly wrong. But what this chap explains is that we don't count things like we used to do. So you can't point out, or you can't claim that it's a record number of people, because for three very obvious reasons. They used to count a couple as one claim. So if a household with two people in it was in receipt of unemployment benefits and they were both receiving unemployment benefits, that would go on the record as one claim. It now goes on the record as two claims. So, of course, the overall figures are going to be higher than they were when we counted a couple as one claim than they are when we count a couple as two claims. That's not an opinion, that's counting. The second reason is that the state pension age has gone up. So when you compare the figure this year with a figure from, say, 10 years ago, when the state pension age was lower, then there will be, 500,000 women aged between 60 and 64 who would have been counted then, but would not be counted, but would not have been counted then, but would now be counted as out-of-work claimants. So the state pension age has gone up, which is why there will be a higher number of people on out-of-work benefits than there were when the state pension age was lower. Okay, that's not an opinion, that's counting. And the third one is that some people out of work and receiving benefits were not actually counted as out of work benefit claimants. If you were just claiming child tax credit or housing benefit, you wouldn't go on the record as an out of work claimant in the old system. But since universal credit came in, you have become an out of work claimant. This is probably the biggest bit of it of all. So you can't say there's a record number of out-of-work claimants when the way that you count them is completely different to the way that you used to count them in the years that you're claiming were lower. If you dig into it far enough, as this chap has done, and I'll share the data on Blue Sky imminently, then what you actually discover is that the overall, if you count it in the same way, the current level is roughly where it was in 2014, 2015, and noticeably lower than it was in 2013. It won't stop the Daily Telegraph doing a borderline unhinged headline with record 6.5 million Britons on jobless benefits, but it would be a bit like me saying I've got a record number of listeners now because we're counting ears. So that there are 2.8 million ears listening to this programme now, which is a record number of listeners. Because in all the previous years, we counted two ears as one person. Apologies to people with one ear. But That's why the overall number is odd. But if I suddenly started counting ears rather than listeners and claimed it's a record number of listeners, we've got 2.8 million listeners now on this program. I thought you had 1.4. No, it's 2.8 million ears listening to this program. So that's what they've done. And I don't think they've done it with malice, but they just haven't done it with intelligence. And that's how you end up with a claim, which has no doubt been parroted by various people outside of the Daily Telegraph as well, who read a headline and read it to you without asking, is that actually true? That is why the figure is utterly pointless, bogus and wrong. And also a rather splendid example of
missed information.
Thank you, Emily. So why are we so bad at keeping people in work when they get sick? And why did you leave? Rovina is in Forest Hill. Rovina, what would you like to say?
Hi, James.
Hello.
Long-term listener and first-time caller. I'm quite nervous.
It's only me. It's only me. Go on.
I've been struggling with depression for about 2 years now. It started with the breakdown of my marriage at the beginning of last year, and I work in a hospital, have done for the last 20 years.
Oh, that's tough.
It is, and I remember I was on call when I found out something that led to the breakdown of my marriage, and I was on call, and I called my boss and not to stop the on call, because that's quite a complicated thing to do.
Yes.
And I didn't want to put that on anybody else in the department. So I was like, I'm not trying to not be on call, but I won't be able to come into work tomorrow because I've had a family emergency.
Right.
And he said no. He was like, we don't have enough people. You have to come in tomorrow. It's like, I'll be working late tonight. I won't be there, so you have to come in. And I said, I think it would it might be quite dangerous for me to be. I'm really badly affected by this. And
fragile,
and
shaky. I'm not quite right. I'm not quite right, and I'm worried because my job is important.
Precisely. But he wasn't hearing any of that, so I went in the next day. And I remember being in surgery, and obviously we wear hats and masks, and I was crying behind my mask while in theatre. And nobody noticed, nobody really cared. I had a colleague at work at the time who was actually a friend, and she when she came in, she saw my face, and immediately she knew something was wrong, and I had to wait until I had a break to leave theatre. And spoke to her in a back corridor and just told her what happened and just broke down. And it wasn't until we start work at 7:30 in the morning, but it wasn't until about 2:00 that people noticed that there was something not quite right. And again, I didn't want to explain what had happened.
And you're doing that thing. You're doing that pushing through, stiff upper lip, call it what you will. You know, it's not. You can and sometimes we can't do that.
And sometimes we can't, exactly. And I think, I don't know if it's us Brits or women or what, I don't know, but some of us are really good at doing that, and I've always been very good at doing that. But in this times,
you can do it until you can't.
That break you.
You
exactly.
can do it until you can't. So we add this to the utterly inadequate support from employers, immediate managers as well. Brian made this point. It may be that the head of the NHS Trust that you work in would be absolutely appalled to hear what you're describing, but they're not in day-to-day control of what happens. And
they're not one with the boots on the ground.
They're not the one with the boots on the ground. And an instant which takes us back to Ali, who's been given special boots so that his knees stop hurting when he's on the train. So you have this idea of a sort of public or institutional scepticism as well, which I think probably does lead to the doors of various media figures and politicians. That you're not really ill, you're just a bit low, or you're just a bit sad. But you could not do your job.
I couldn't do my job, and it carried on like this for another month or two.
Right.
And I was depressed at this point, and I was realizing the scary point was where it was affecting my job, and I was worried about being in theatre and being this depressed and distracted by all the things that were going on in my personal life. And finally I went to my GP, encouraged by my mum, and the GP asked all these questions like, you absolutely are depressed, and you absolutely shouldn't be doing your job. You shouldn't be working right now. You need to focus on you.
Wow.
And it's the first time in my career that I've been signed off. He signed me off for 2 months. And the thing is, my department was already quite a toxic one that I'd worked at for 7 years. But again, I love my job, and I push through, and I get on with the other departments. It's just our little department is quite self-governing, and because of that,
I mean, if you want people to be less stressed at work, make work nicer.
Well, this is the flip side, and this is what I was telling your producer, because I was signed off for the.
Don't forget that she's living the dream. Her working environment is absolutely heavenly. I mean, so I don't know that she'd really understand how hard it was for you, because crikey, talk about rose-tinted existence.
Well, eventually I did leave that hospital, and because there were too many hard things that I was dealing with home and work.
Really?
It was too much. And the place I'm working now, he's the best manager I've ever worked for.
Incredible the difference it makes.
It's chalk and cheese. It is actually absolutely incredible.
Yeah, most people won't know that.
Straight away, he just put me in touch with the counselling service within the hospital itself. I didn't even know it existed.
Yeah.
And I was getting counselling for free every couple of weeks.
Put that on the list as well. Not just counselling, but also effort put into making sure the workforce knows what support is available, because there'll be some people who could get help, but they can't. And of course, had things been a few notches higher for you, a few notches worse, you wouldn't have just left the hospital, you would have left the workforce.
I would have. Yeah, I would have. The only thing that stopped me from doing that is because of the marriage breakdown, and I've got a daughter, so I can't do that.
No.
But you're right. That would have been. It's crossed my mind many times.
But you're back.
Would have been that. Yeah, I'm back. And I think this year, as opposed to taking 2 months last year, I've taken maybe 3 days this year. And I know that is a direct effect of my manager, of my department being a lot more supportive. Yeah, I tell them.
Good. I just wanted to check, because it's actually a really good story, yours. I hope you realise that yourself. I hope you sort of recognise that you'll be giving hope to some people listening who worry that they might end up where Brian has ended up, and through no fault of his own. Let me make that absolutely clear. But isn't it interesting how many people are mentioning immediate superiors, immediate line managers? And you remind me of my most stressful times at work have been when the people in charge of my working life have been either not up to the job or not very nice. And I was joking about the producer. I'm very, very blessed. I love coming to work every day, and a large part of that is the people that run this place. And without that, you're on a very, very different footing. You really are. And again, it's easy to forget that. Simple things that would keep people in the workplace is what we should be talking about, not your Auntie Doris's window cleaner's daughter who's swinging the lead and taking the mickey and driving around in a car that she doesn't deserve. Well, at least she's not eating swans.
James O'Brien on LBC.
I mean, it doesn't matter, does it? I can run through all that stuff that I just did. Thank you to the social policy researcher, Ben Bamberg-Geiger. I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, currently working at King's College London, and pointing out quite perfectly that the figures being bandied around when it comes to out-of-work benefits are bogus and dangerous and profoundly wrong. But none of the newspapers that printed it, none of the broadcast platforms that repeated it will tell you that. It's just weird. Some days you sort of think, why do we bother? Why do we bother? But other days you think, God, thank goodness we're bothering. I don't know what today is yet. Is it a why do we bother day or a thank goodness we're bothering day? 10:53 is the time, because this is a much more helpful and illuminating conversation than a roll call of people who think that everybody claiming any benefit at all is either a scrounger or work shy or both. 300,000 people a year leaving the workforce due to serious illness, and I now have a much better understanding of why that might be, or indeed why that is, than I did at 10 o'clock. And on we go. James is in Balham. James, what would you like to say?
Well, there's so many different layers to this. Maybe if I give a bit of context of my kind of situation. So I was a formerly morbidly obese human being. I was 41 stone at my heaviest. Changed my life around. In the process, developed the usual kind of stuff that you will do through diabetes, but also continued to work in the entirety of my illness up until the point where I had my leg amputated. Because of the kind of ongoing issues.
Wow.
Then, because I was unwilling to be what they would classify as a scrounger or work shy, even though the amputation didn't go correctly and I'm a chronic pain sufferer, I still continued to work. I did any job possible, started off as a receptionist in a gym, and then got into MMA photography, which is where I'm kind of still in that realm now.
Right.
However, the thing I want to kind of point on is every opportunity, because I required sometimes hospital visits of up to like 2-3 times a week. Yeah. It didn't matter how good I was at my job, and being egotistical for a second, I was pretty damn good at every job I've done, but it was always a question of... exactly. Well, we're both James, so, you know, it comes with the name. But at every turn, you come across managers, line managers, recruitment, HR, that it doesn't matter how good you are at your job, do you tick this box? Are you within this percentile of being at work at this time? And I think that's a fundamental issue that occurs across the board. And also, I'm a strong person. Out of the 94 patients that were being seen when I had my amputation, I'm the only one alive to this day. Wow. The usual mortality rate is 3 to 5 years after amputation. I'm 8 years, going strong in the best physical shape of my life, and long may that continue. Indeed. And even I struggle to be able to continue with
determination and talent, but with a permanent condition, with a long-term. 100%. I don't know if it qualifies as a long-term illness.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
And so you get PIP, I presume.
I do, yes.
Good. But your employers, your various employers, make it almost impossible, or actually have made it impossible, for you to continue in posts.
100%, and that goes across the board from being... I worked in the transport industry, I worked in the kind of communications industry, I've had office-based jobs, I've had a whole gambit. And the thing is, the more active you are, in my situation, the more it can exacerbate certain conditions.
Oh, so it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't scenario.
Exactly.
So right now, if you started a new job on Monday morning, how much time would you need roughly, because it's going to be different from month to month.
Sure.
How much time a month would you need to be at the hospital? Would you need to be attending appointments?
Well, at the moment, I mean, I've been battling again because of my mobility. I'm too mobile because I'm stubborn, which is what's helped keep me alive. But I've had an ongoing ulceration in my residual limb for the last 8 months. So I'm having to go minimum once a week to the podiatrist to get that seen to make sure it doesn't break down, turn into an infection, which then can lead to a second amputation.
Cope with that, wouldn't you? You'd think people would be able to factor that into the rota, or factor that into the schedule.
Yeah, but it's the inability of... It's always like, well, this is our company policy. We've lost the ability for nuance. And then what I mean by nuance is actually looking at a person as a whole. What do you bring to the company?
Could you show me the company policy for amputees, please?
There actually are a few, to be honest with you. It depends on... Because I was a train operator. I know there'll be boos and hisses across the radio land at that.
Not from me.
But again, in that, there are things like you have to be able to cross live track and stuff like that. So the amputation does come into that. But again, that's kind of an outlier. But
I meant more the company policy for providing you with the kind of help and support that you're not being provided with.
Well, it's supposed to be what they call work-life balance, isn't it? So they have to be able to make reasonable adjustments. But again, reasonable is subjective. So depending on the person that you come across, is dependent on the reasonability of that kind of yardstick.
So much of it is coming back to that. Do we know? I don't suppose any of us really know what it's like in other countries. Because I mean, would they be more sympathetic, more nuanced, more accommodating in places like France and Canada?
I think they do have differing... I mean, speaking to different people over the years that have had similar kind of situations, it's dependent. I mean, there's a lot more leeway, especially when you have countries like Canada that have a level of kind of medical care, but also have the insurance system as well. But that then covers... Your insurance will then cover up to a certain point how much time you have off. We'll give you to that. But again, with employers... I suppose it differs place to place, I suppose.
So, I mean, the single worst contributors to this conversation would be employers or senior business people who don't take these conditions seriously, or who don't think that it is a genuine problem because, for example, they got stuck in traffic this morning in their chauffeur-driven car, and they know what stress is, and they know what depression is, and they know what anxiety is. And then on the physical side of things, Scott perfectly highlighting how people with long-term illness will need long-term accommodation in the workplace, and if you can't provide that, then they will leave the workplace. And suddenly, after an hour of conversation, that figure of 300,000, and there's plenty of people still waiting to contribute, and although that's barely scratching the surface of the tip of the iceberg, to mix my metaphors, it doesn't sound shocking anymore. And it does sound like something that policy, government and companies can address.
James O'Brien on LBC.
Minutes after 11 is the time. Cats and dogs as well. Cats and dogs. Start counting cats and dogs for our listener numbers. Goodness knows what would happen to our listener numbers if we counted cats and dogs. If we counted ears instead of people, it would double pretty much overnight, unless Vincent van Gogh was tuning in. And if we counted cats and dogs as well, they count as listeners. They can hear it. The radio is on. The cat is listening, sort of. That counts as well. Then you would get a figure that was about as reliable as the Daily Telegraph's figure for people claiming out-of-work benefits. It's a funny old world, isn't it? Right, thinking caps on. Not at all tricky, this topic, but I think you need your thinking cap on to contribute, because it won't be immediately obvious. Okay, and it's Thursday, so Mystery Hour's on the way at 12. I love conversations about high streets. I think one of the reasons why I love conversations about high streets is because it is such a universal experience. We all have a relationship with a high street. Even if you live in the middle of nowhere, at some point in your life, you've had a high street. And if you live, I think, outside big cities, and even on some occasions in them, then the chances are you've experienced a really grim decline in the state of your local high street for both avoidable and unavoidable reasons. There was a great passion in the 1980s. There probably still is, but I've lived in London since the early 90s. There was a great passion for building out-of-town shopping centres, presumably because if you followed the money, somebody somewhere was coming out quids in. And all the shops that used to be on your high street relocated to the out-of-town shopping centre with its multiplex screen. And depending on where you grew up, you've now got words like Meadowhall or Merry Hill popping in your mind, or Arndale. That was not out of town, actually, Arndales. They were usually in town. But anyway, out-of-town shopping centres. Even not very far out of town, in the case of Kidderminster, where I grew up. As the high street declined, they'd be building new developments on some old industrial land that was within walking distance of where the high street used to be. I always think Woolworths is quite emblematic of these issues, particularly for people of my age, for whom Woolworths was a destination. It's the kind of place your mum could leave you when she went off to do the shopping. And Woolworths was such a fascinating shop, selling everything from bicycles and cricket bats through to, I don't know, balls of wool and garden rakes. So you could kill an hour in Woolworths easily, and if you were really lucky and your mum was in a good mood, you'd be able to kill an hour while slurping on a slush puppy that you could also buy in Woolworths. And everybody knows blue was the best flavour. I will not be taking any further questions. So I always think of Woolworths, and actually in Kidderminster, where I'm going this weekend, but I haven't been for a while. Well, about a month. I haven't been into town. I go to my mum's. I don't always go into town. I just go to the football stadium, the pub, and the train station, and my mum's. But they have finally got around to knocking down the old Woolies, as I understand it, and replacing it with a park. And I kind of like that. So instead of having conversations about what can you put in an old shop, an old abandoned shop that's been boarded up for years, what can you put in that? And the answer is sometimes nothing. So you need councils, which of course are all cash strapped anyway, but you need councils to be a little bit more imaginative, a little bit more forward thinking. I think this really matters. I think it is a large part of our political problems. I think a lot of the rise of racism is down to a sense of decline in towns. I remember when I was keen to better understand how people could have been conned into voting for Brexit, being struck by how likely seaside towns were to be Farage friendly. So I went to a few. I went to Margate in particular, and Ramsgate and Great Yarmouth. I like old British seasides. Even the faded grandeur sometimes appeals to me. I also, just in case you question my middle-age credentials, I also like getting on buses and just driving around areas, particularly the top deck of a bus, and having a look at places that I don't know very well. I haven't been able to do it while the girls were young, but as they're now getting older, I've started doing it again. And I know it's a bit weird, and my family laugh at me, but I like to know what's happening in my country. It's a form of patriotism that doesn't involve painting St. George's crosses on swans. So it's my equivalent of Rory Stewart's walks. I go on bus rides. But the seaside towns, I felt, more than anywhere else in England, particularly England, really did wear their better histories on their sleeve. So even a hotel from the pre-package holiday age would once have been a really glamorous destination. In Margate, there are hotels that boast about the French chefs that used to work there and the members of the European royalty and aristocracy who used to visit. And the bandstands will be, really beautiful wrought iron, or cast iron, I'm never quite sure of the difference. But they have been painted over so many times and graffitied, and that. So I just feel that seaside towns 10 years ago really encapsulated a decline, because you could almost squint a bit and see what it was like before the decline. Andrew says, come to Rhyl. We've got some beautiful Victorian Art Deco architecture, but it's been left to ruin. And that, of course, is another seaside town, formerly home of the Sun Centre, where I spent some very happy times as a child. And that's just my theory. I'm sure I'm not the first person to come up with it, but if you look at the Brexit vote and the way that it was built upon people's gullibility or susceptibility to being told that things can be better again, then the closer you lived to a better past, the more susceptible you would be to that snake oil and lie. And that brings us to the high street, which is the same thing now in many places. There are some wonderful, wonderful high streets. Of course there are, and you're going to message me and I'm not going to read them out. So, I know there are. Brentford High Street at the moment is undergoing a little bit of a resurgence. Some of the renaissance even. Some of the problems, a word that you don't often hear in the context of Brentford. The Brentford Renaissance. But, it is not necessarily the common experience. I think cities are slightly different. So I've got this wonderful ability to compare my hometown, where the high street has withered on the vine, and my current home, where the high street is currently undergoing a period of investment, largely due to property developments in the area and renaissance. Torquay is another one with a sense of past splendour, John reminds us. And I spend quite a lot of time in Norfolk, as you know. I go around a place like King's Lynn, and you have, again, a slight sense of what the high street used to be like, and now there is a preponderance of vape shops and barbers' shops and, in some places, those weird sweet shops, and they're even better. Undesirable though some of those establishments may be to some people, they're better than boarded-up shops, aren't they? Rather have something on the high street than nothing. And it's to boarded up shops that I want to turn your attention next, because I would love this idea to work. A regeneration initiative. It's Thursday, so it must be time for another regeneration initiative. Deprived areas across the UK will receive tens of millions of pounds from a fund that Keir Starmer hopes will help revivify broken communities. It's been reported in some places an attempt to head off the threat of reform, which just makes empty promises all the time and blames everything on swan-munching migrants. But if you were to actually improve a community, if you were to get rid of the boarded-up shops, which is the phrase he will use, the shuttered youth clubs, the crumbling parks, all of the locations and locales that have become, in his words, symbols of a system that stopped listening. And a lot of the damage we're describing will have been exacerbated or indeed created by
austerity. 300 areas across the country to get cash to patch up derelict shops, pubs and libraries, as well as new powers to decide which businesses can set up on their high streets. It's a sort of devolution. It's a central plank of policy response to the rise of populism and racist liars. And the Prime Minister is hoping that voters whose susceptibility to populism and racist liars will be changed, if you like, by seeing an improvement in the poor state of their local communities. So I make no apology for asking you a slightly North Norfolk digital question now. It's not going to be about the pedestrianisation of Norwich city centre. It's going to be about your town, which means I'm more likely to listen to you if you're outside the big cities, because the big cities still have high streets and big shops because people come to them. At least I think they do. What I want you to tell me is what you would do. That's why I said you need to put your thinking caps on. Imagine you were in charge of your town, where you are now. Imagine, like my hometown of Kidderminster, it has a declined high street, a diminished high street. What's the word that they've used? A kind of, just an air of the good times being behind us. The boarded up shops. And not just the shops. And I know youth clubs won't be on high streets, but I want you to include this, and crumbling parks. If I gave you some money, how would you improve your town? And I really don't want to do this, but I need a little bit of convincing that this is going to work. Because, listen, if you unboard a shop, it's still got to wash its face financially. Are you going to tell the landlord that they're not allowed to charge rent? I've never understood why landlords don't let out shops for free or for a peppercorn rent to people who will at least have a business in a empty shop. I presume it's because their portfolios are so huge that a few shut shops don't matter. But if you reopen a youth club, if you manage to reopen a youth club, resurrect a youth club, you're still going to need volunteers. The world in which the youth club closed has not changed, has it? The reasons why the youth club closed haven't changed, except money. So, again, perhaps money could be the answer. The boarded up shops, the crumbling youth clubs, the parks that aren't fit for purpose anymore. You're going to need someone in it. You're going to need a park keeper. Or a security guard, or someone to ensure that the play area isn't dominated by teenagers smoking weed, and that the kids who aren't supposed to be in that part of the park are not in that part of the park. Or that you see what I mean? I don't want to be a misery guts about it. But I'm looking at the towns, particularly the seaside towns. I don't know why I focus on that. It's because it's part of being English, isn't it? That relationship with your childhood holidays, going to places like Filey or Scarborough or Yarmouth or Burnham-on-Sea, and towns that still in the 70s and the 80s, when we would go there on holiday because my parents were spending all their money on school fees and we couldn't afford to go abroad, you'd see just close to the surface the magic and the glamour. Exmouth was a great one. I used to love going to Exmouth. It felt so glamorous to go. The Imperial Hotel in Exmouth. But now they are, with some exceptions, not all the towns I've mentioned will have fallen foul of what we're describing, the demise of the high street, the demise of the town. But what would you do? What little or big things would you do simply to improve what I have just described, and what Keir Starmer is freeing up public money to 300 areas, 300 deprived areas in need of regeneration? What would you spend the money on? Because it's easy to sit here and say boarded up shops, parks and youth clubs. What would you spend the money on in your town? How would you spend this money? And I am going to ask the question, do you think it will work? Or do you think that the reasons why places have become run down remain, and therefore efforts to improve places that have become run down will ultimately be doomed? I really, really hope not. But what would you do with a boarded up shop, with a rundown park, or with a shut youth club? What would you do if I gave you some cash, if I gave you some money? It's 11:17. The number you need is 0345 6060 973. You know the next bit. If you hit the numbers now, you will get through.
James O'Brien on LBC.
2 minutes after 11. So I'm going to add one more question to the mix, and then happily my first caller is in Scarborough, which is why, if a landlord owns a shop that's boarded up, why doesn't he let someone have it for nothing? Or she, or they? I know sometimes my economics can sound very naive, but sometimes actually it turns out that naivety is the answer to entrenched hyper-capitalism. Here's a boarded up shop. It's been boarded. The Woolworths in Kidderminster was boarded up for over a decade and knocked it down and made a park, which I haven't visited, but I probably will this weekend. Why? I remember when I first started, I'm in that mood, aren't I? Turning into Ronnie Corbett, telling a story. Let's take some calls. You've had it more than James is in Scarborough. James, what made you pick up the phone?
Good morning, James.
Hello,
I'm in sunny Scarborough,
Lovely.
home to, at one point, the biggest, most grand hotel in Europe.
Yes, I know. That proves my point entirely, doesn't it? And it was proper glamour as well. It wasn't sort of...
It was. Yeah. And now it's covered in seagull mess. But I think there are some things kind of popping up here on the coast, and there's one place called Mandy Apple, which is a perfect example that it's a mini art gallery. There's small spaces, and I think they're trying to fill these big spaces with big businesses that aren't going to come. Because if you're sat at home watching TV with a cup of tea, it's a lot easier to just pick up your phone and order something than it is to go in town, find parking and things. So we need unique experiences. And what this place does, it's got an art gallery, it's got workshop events, but it's also got a shop just for local artists that you get something absolutely unique that you can't get anywhere else. So it's a space for loads of different people putting their art, and you go in and it's a new experience every single time. And I've seen some of these places pop up all over. And where Scarborough's failing a little bit is it's because it's got these big high street stores, whereas Whitby, just up the coast, there's no empty shops because it's full of these small shops. So you get independent businesses in that have unique experiences. Some have been there for hundreds of years because the rent's small, they can sustain themselves. And they're hotbed for whether it's new restaurants setting up in these small spaces.
Lower overhead. So what we've got, probably either consciously or subconsciously at a council level and above, we've got a sense, and possibly from landlords as well, although you'd have thought they'd be more economically astute and would move a little quicker, but a sense that if we just sit this out, then the good times will return, and we'll have the 21st century equivalent of Woolworths, or the old Littlewood store will no longer be empty, or the big old Virgin mega store will be full again. Do you know what? Actually, I should think of this more, because I've been wanging on about how London is an exception to this, but the Tower Records site in Piccadilly Circus has been empty for as long as I can remember, almost. And the idea that any business now is going to be able to move in on that sort of scale, once you've got your big fashion retailers out of the way, there's nothing left, is there? So the answer is little stuff.
Yeah, separate the big stores into little stores. Invite artists to have even a shelf for people in the community.
No, I like it. And I think, there's a lovely... Because it's a while since I was in Margate, and I think they've been on a bit of a journey as well. They've got the wonderful art gallery down there, and Tracy Emin has done a lot of work. But and you've got the Turner Contemporary Art Gallery as well. That's the one I'm talking about, isn't it, on the seafront? You can't turn all of these faded seaside towns into hipster paradises, but you can learn, perhaps, from the hipster paradises and make a few nudges in that direction. I like that. Thank you, Jez. I went to my first ever ice cream parlour in Scarborough. Are they still there?
The one on the seafront?
Yes.
Yeah, that's still there. It's been used in films, everything, because it's maintained its 50 glam.
It's absolutely gorgeous. I can still remember the thrill of realising that there were flavours beyond vanilla, strawberry and chocolate, which was all we'd ever seen when we wandered into that ice cream parlour. Banana, I think I went for. Thank you, James. There's a Turner link to Brentford as well. I don't know if you knew that, just to knit together all of the other threads. So they've got Turner Gallery in Margate, and Turner learnt to paint in Brentford when he was staying in a butcher's shop owned by his uncle, which is my local pub is now on the site of. This is what you tune in for, isn't it? These insights, these little anecdotes and asides. Ash is in Dover. Ash, what would you like to say?
Hello, good morning, James.
Hello, Ash.
I think it ties in a little bit with what you were talking about this morning as well. It's a very broad subject, and there's a lot of benefits even out there, even from local councils in our town that offer 50% reductions on the business rates and so on. There was a town just over Folkestone which had a load of investment from Roger DeHaan, who owned Saga back in the day. But sometimes we don't have enough time to go into our towns. Shopkeepers are in their shops Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, while everyone with disposable income is generally at work. And when the weekend comes, they want to be spending their time with the family, so they're ordering online. And that goes against probably your friend Farage's, we need to be working harder and put people into work a lot more. But we do need a little bit more time, I think, to go out. Oh, also, I lived in Spain. Your industrial businesses are open sort of 9 till 5, 8 till 4, and your consumables are open mornings and evenings. Now, in the wintertime, we couldn't copy that so much, but in the summertime, we could.
Different models, different patterns. But we're living in the same places that we lived in when we used our towns more. But you're right, we are shopping differently. And so, I mean, so part of it then, you've got the renaissance or the revivification argument and bits of that. But part of it will involve accepting that this is actually no longer a commercial area, and to leave this property empty, particularly with housing crises, is the wrong answer to the wrong question. We should actually be repurposing property for residential use.
Also, well, in Spain, you have a lot of people that live above, in towns, above the shops. So just walk down the stairs.
I'm obsessed with that, mate. I'm so boring. I'm obsessed with that. I often find myself looking, I think, is there anything up there? Is there anything above that Marks and Spencer? I know there'll be an office, and I've worked in shops a lot, and you've always got the staff canteen and a changing room and stuff like that. But what about the floor above? It's been empty for 30 years. It's full of mannequins from when River Island used to be a Hepworth's.
Sure, and can I say one more thing?
Of course you can.
There's conversations now about taxing the wealth and scaring off all the millionaires. Nobody's really talking about encouraging a little bit more philanthropy, which is also a question I'd like to put to Mr. Farage. What has he ever done philanthropically or in community or charity in his part of his wealth? But I think we should maybe look at it.
He's bought a lot of houses. Does that count? He keeps buying houses, or his girlfriend does. I think they've got 5 now between them, although it's hard to know who bought what because he lies, or I'm sorry, he misspeaks about it so much. But yeah, I like that. That's why I'm a big fan of the Timpson family. There's the simple notion of philanthropy. And it's why I'm also a little bit sceptical and impatient with people who are very left-wing and want to sort of abolish wealth altogether, but a little tickle in the right direction. I'm not sure about relying on voluntary goodness, making it a sort of compulsory philanthropy, and that is what a wealth tax looks like. And speaking of River Island, which is, of course, where I used to work, I've got a lovely message from Barry saying that this is here's a shop that you must have walked past many times on your way to River Island from Foregate Street Station back in the day. My lad, I'm going to mispronounce this, C-I-A-N, is it Sean? Is it a Celtic pronunciation of Sean? Anyway, my lad Sean took it on some 2.5 years ago and has reopened it after it was shut for 5 years or more. It's now a thriving vintage shop, Mail House, vintage and designer at 16 the Foregate in Worcester. I love dads like Barry. Not only is he tickling my ivories with that lovely little trip down memory lane, he's also just managed to secure his boy a free advert on the most listened to talk radio programme on the whole of commercial radio in the UK. And that was before we started counting the cats and counting the dogs. They're counting the cats. They're counting the dogs. Dave's in Poole. Dave, what would you like to say?
Oh, yeah, well, I was just sort of reacting to your, the thought of the reinvigorating towns with tens of millions of pounds from this Labour government. And I think it speaks to a larger, more fundamental problem that is overarching with a lot of the things that are on your phone-ins. And I've been in Poole my entire life. I'm 50 years of age. Poole has a lot of money. It's a wealthy area. It's 2 hours from London.
Yes.
The town centre is sort of 3 miles from the beach, and the town centre is not somewhere with my children I would care to go shopping anymore.
No, there's not a lot you can do about that.
No, where there was a lovely Beals department store, there were lovely eateries, etc., etc. The job I do, I'm an account manager selling expensive bicycles into bicycle stores, and I see a lot of retailers. I travel around the south.
Yeah.
And the fundamental problem to my mind is the offshoring of tax liabilities by the Apples, the Starbucks, particularly Amazon, where
But how would that work? If you mean there would be more money to invest in communities if they were paying more tax?
Sorry, to my mind, they're saying, oh, well, that we don't actually make any money in the UK. We turn it, and their profits are offshore to Luxembourg, where they have a lower tax bearing. If you were to say, right, I've bought an item in...
No, I understand that, but what do you think would be done with the money raised that would impact upon Poole High Street, for example?
Well, I think it would make the Amazons... It's not so much with the money raised, it would be more that you would bring those businesses up to the same cost base as the businesses that used to be on these high streets.
I'm being a bit of a pain, aren't I? I'm sorry. But who on Poole High Street was a rival to Apple?
Well, there would have been a traditional PC shop, that would have sold Apple products.
Right.
And Apple are now not paying tax where that business would have paid corporation tax.
Okay.
Amazon are supplying...
We've still got little electrical shops all over the place.
Not in the way that we used to have.
Well, no, but we haven't got food shops in the way that we used to have. We've got big supermarkets now, and grocers have gone out of business. I don't know that... I'd like you to be right, but I don't know... And I certainly agree with your broader points about Amazon in particular, but... I don't know what would... I suppose if Amazon wasn't hoovering up the market, then an independent bookshop would be a lot more viable on the high street. But in the absence of that kind of legislation, do you think it's a lost cause? You don't think that governments can help someone open a little bookshop in
I think it's, the right wing want to talk very much about, a capitalist market and free market and all the rest of it, whereas for a lot of their mates at these big companies, they seem to want a closed market where if the cost base is the same.
Yes, so that's very true.
If I'm having something delivered from Amazon and the tax was paid... it's a sales tax that had to be paid at my postcode by Amazon. That would put them on the same cost base as all of these little shops. And then, the little shops would survive or they wouldn't, but at least they'd be on the same cost base.
Yeah, well, it is a little bit... It's a little bit like expecting Kidderminster Harriers to compete with Manchester United and giving Manchester United... the tax breaks. And Kidderminster Harriers obviously wouldn't have a prayer. I like it. I'm not cracking on. I'm not cutting you off. I'm just already late for the news. 10:31 is the time. Thomas Watts has your headlines.
James O'Brien on LBC.
I didn't do that one on purpose. I did the first one on... that is bound to happen, isn't it? You get the time wrong on purpose to set up a brilliant joke that straddles a news bulletin and come off the back of it claiming that a taxi driver told me it was 11 o'clock when actually it was 10 o'clock. But then completely by accident, you say it's 10:30 when it's actually 11:30, and you cause people to have heart attacks up and down the country. Oh, boy. Imagine if you're listening on catch-up. That's going to be even more confusing. Anyway, it is 11:34. I got a bit of a head cold. I hope you can't hear the... I don't know whether that is why I'm being a little bit slow on the uptake today. Happily, Mystery Hour is just around the corner, but also happily, the conversation that we're having about boarded-up shops and beyond is absolutely fascinating. What would you do? And the answer so far is twofold. You need to have... smaller ambitions. You're never going to replace Woolworths on the high street in a Midlands town. You're never going to get a business that comes in and does a Woolworths. Last caller, speaking about Amazon, they're shutting down their fresh stores. I don't know if you knew this. That mode of shopping has not landed for them. First one was in Ealing, just up the road from me, and it's the shops where you go in and there aren't any... you just do your shopping. And there aren't any staff at all, and you just sort of scan it as you go and then walk out the shop with your bag full of food. I thought that would be the future. It turns out it isn't. I love things like that. It's like the corollary to all the things that we saw on Tomorrow's World when we were kids, and they haven't happened yet. Hoverboards and pills you can take that would replace entire meals, which seemed attractive when you were a kid and you were desperate to get back outside on your grifter. Start bombing around. But now I'd hate the idea of taking a pill instead of having a slap-up feed with all the trimmings. But you've got the opposite of that as well, which is the things that aren't happening, the technologies that you sort of want and think will be the future, will be the new normal, and then they don't land. So shops are an example of that. The shop without staff has failed, it would appear, from Amazon's decision to shut all its so-called fresh stores. But why does a shop shut? Why does a shop stay shut? It's a bit of a tongue twister, that. You might have to be careful how you say that. Don't try and say it too quickly. Why does a shop stay shut? As opposed to Ratner's, which, of course, stays... I can't say that word on the radio. I don't know. I'm not a landlord. I'd never owned any commercial property, but if I did and it was boarded up, Why does a shop stay shut? It is really hard to say that, isn't it? I don't know why. But I don't know. Why would you leave it shut? So in London, in Leicester Square, where I work, there was a pub that was shut and it was boarded up. And I used to wonder why. And between you and me, I used to try and persuade the boss to buy it and turn it into the LBC pub. Or, all right, we'd let the others in. We'd let Moyles in and Johnny Vaughan. I would call it the Global Pub if you want, but it would be the LBC pub. I'd sit in a corner being a philosopher. Buy me a pint and I'll give you a monologue. It would have been a wonderful pub. And no one ever bought it. And when did we move to Leicester Square? It was about 10 years ago or more. How long have we been here now? It's a long time, isn't it? 15 years I've been here. I know what you're thinking. I'm so fresh-faced. And so it was empty for 10 of those 15 years, and I didn't understand why. Why would the landlord leave it shut? Surely, even if you were putting someone in on a reduced rent. And the answer was the games that they play, the stakes that they play for are so huge. So that gets knocked down, and it's now a sort of state-of-the-art 12-star hotel. And that's what they're waiting for. They don't need to fill. But that's Leicester Square. That's not Kidderminster or Yarmouth or Kings Lynn or Salford or, it's... Why? Why do the shops stay shut? Surely you'd at least try and put something else in there, and if it fails, it fails. You're back where you started. It hasn't got worse. 11:38 is the time. I've got a missing word round for you. Are you ready for this one? I'm used to being labelled racist for loving our flag, but I'll sue councillor who called me a blank. I'm used to being labelled a racist for loving our flag, but I'll sue councillor who called me a blank. Back to yesterday's story about these people who are constantly whining about being called racist. Who's calling them racist? Who is doing it? I sometimes think that some of the tactics deployed by people who are claiming to be exercising their patriotism are either consciously or subconsciously likely to alienate people who aren't white, for example. But simply saying I love a flag does not prompt anybody else to respond by saying you must be racist. But they never stop whining, these people. I'm used to being labelled racist for loving our flag, but I'll sue councillor who called me a blank. I'll answer that one for you shortly. Back to the high street, back to the boarded up shops. Off to Droylsden, that's where Joe is. Joe, what would you like to say?
Morning, James.
Hello.
How's your head, mate?
It's a bit bunged up, actually, but I don't know if that's a reason why I've lost the ability to tell the time, Joe. Don't know if that's a symptom. Where's Droylsden? That's Lancashire?
It's a small town about 10 minutes away from the Etihad, so East Manchester.
Yeah, OK. Would have been Lancashire once, would it?
Once upon a time, but I think that's a bone of contention. I don't know.
Well, I don't want to open that Pandora's box, mate. I've got enough on my plate. What made you pick up the phone today?
Yeah, it was just quite interesting. I was talking to your researcher before he producer. Apologies, I don't know which is which. But Droylsden Precinct, where I have many childhood memories, used to be fantastic, but now it is dead and buried. I'd say there's about 40 or so, maybe plus commercial units, the vast majority of which are boarded up.
Chorlton Precinct.
Droylsden.
Sorry, I thought you said Chorlton. Yeah, OK. No, and nothing has replaced them, and most of them have been boarded up forever.
Yeah, for years and years and years. I mean, there's a couple of like little pop-up real ale pubs and bars that are making the most to try and sort of revivify the precinct.
Yes.
But whenever I walk through it, I'm really, really sad. Do you know what I mean?
Me too. Yeah, not in Droylsden, but in Kidderminster. We've got the same in Kidderminster. A couple of people down. People who know the town will know where I'm talking about. But down where Sainsbury's is, the old Sainsbury's used to be, there are a couple. There is a real ale. It's small, isn't it? A tap room almost.
And that's what they're trying to do. But what I was saying before is, whenever I go and see my friend down in London, I always bore my other half to tears because I'm absolutely mesmerised by the amount of cool little independent shops, and that just does not seem to translate up north at all. And it almost seems to me that there's more shops than there are customers. That, like the vast majority of them you walk through, there doesn't seem to be anybody in there shopping. But
they'll be paying a lot of rent, so they must be washing their faces. Maybe you're scaring off the natives, Joe.
yeah, coming down on me flat cat.
No whippets allowed in my little Crouch End boutique. Which parts of London are you going to?
My friend lives in Wimbledon, but obviously, he'll take us into central London. And as a humble northerner, you walk around and it is absolutely fabulous. But it always kind of I do get that kind of burning Northern Envy a little bit, because it's kind of like, why on earth are there...
Can you sustain all this?
Yeah, exactly.
Is it population concentration? Population concentration. I mean, Wimbledon is very cheechy, isn't it? It's got very... it's got a lovely high street, actually, Wimbledon, and it's busy. Even when the tennis isn't on, it's busy. But I guess as a capital city, London is always going to have people coming like you who don't live there. There's going to be lots of people there who are visiting, and therefore you're always going to be able to get more money over the till than you are in a town or a city where you're relying almost entirely on the residents to keep your businesses afloat.
Yeah, and what makes me sad is it kind of feels like there's nothing to walk to. Like,
yes.
You know, like you were saying, there's, you know, unless you're after a skin fade, your nails done, and a vape. Do you know what I mean?
Sometimes all in the same premises.
Yeah. There doesn't seem that much to go and have a look around.
But this is this is the sad element of this conversation, because on the one hand, we've got ideas about how you can resurrect places or improve places, and that's what the government is aiming to do. But on the other hand, I think we're all suffering from a little bit of in my day-itis, because the days we're dreaming of are never going to come back.
Yeah, which is tragic, isn't it?
It is a shame, yes.
And I don't know whether, you know, obviously, I can imagine that, you know, you had your Tesco's, it was a massive concern to the high street sort of way before my time, but I guess like your previous caller was saying, with Amazon, you can order essentially whatever you want.
Yeah, and they'll drop it and they'll stick it through your letterbox. And it's all, you know...
How are you ever going to compete with that business model, regardless of how cool and how niche your little high street shop is? You know what I mean? But
no, you're not, and that's that's what I mean about there being two sides to this coin. There's definitely stuff that can be done, but it's not stuff that is ever going to return the high street to the glories that we remember, and sometimes, of course, misremember. But the world has turned; everything has changed, up to and including shopping habits. I just need to check, Joe, when you come down to London from Droylsden and you are mesmerised by the wonderfulness of the city and the thriving, throbbing metropolis. You're not worried about all the people in balaclavas that are trying to steal your Rolex, or you're not frightened of stepping out onto public transport because of all the immigrants, or because, I mean, that is the London that is being portrayed by Donald Trump. You don't lie awake at night worrying about all that stuff?
No, but I am considering. I mean, how does this sound if we're brought to Droylsden? Maybe like a feed shop for geese and you know, carp, and market it to the migrant community. What do you think? That might take off?
I think you'd clean up, mate. I think you'd clean up. Although you'd have to check with the taxi driver first. Thank you, Joe. It is. I mean, it is funny that, actually. I saw a lad from Manchester coming to London and remember, I'm still a kid from Kidderminster at heart, and you sometimes catch yourself looking at Piccadilly Circus or looking at Regent Street, or going down one of the old arcades, the sort of Victorian arcades, a wonderful thing, and you sort of think, this is just mad. This is such a wonderful city. And you turn your television on and there's some councillor from Reform claiming that she can't go on public transport without being surrounded by people in balaclavas. The problem with balaclavas, of course, if it was actually true what she was saying, is that you wouldn't be able to say with certainty that they were actually migrants or ethnic minorities. So you'd have to pick between the two. What is going to be a more frightening lie to tell? That they're all brown-skinned, or that they're all wearing balaclavas? Or perhaps you could, I don't know. It must be tough coming up with that kind of nonsense on an almost daily basis. It's 11:45.
James O'Brien on LBC.
It's 11:49 and you're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. Shall we finish off the missing word round? This is going to be quite tricky. This is where Keith and I have to work together like... I don't know, Hale and Pace. No, not Hale and Pace. Shut up. Ronaldo and Rooney. Did they work that well together? We have to work brilliantly well together. We have to have proper chemistry, almost synergy. You can see the sparks flying between us. All right. So here is the headline with a missing word. I'm used to being labelled racist for loving our flag, but I'll sue councillor who called me a... What? Why did you do that? Am I not allowed to say this word? Let's try again. I'm used to being... Because it's printed in the Daily Telegraph. Surely I'm allowed to. I'm used to being labelled racist for loving our flag, but I'll sue councillor who called me a... Is it on the Ofcom list? This word here is on the Ofcom list of words that I can't say on... It's not... You can say it in the Daily Telegraph. So it's on strong. It's the strong one. There are some words you can get away with. Ofcom says, fair usage, as it were, and context and stuff like that. But I had no idea that was on the list. When I tell you some of the other words on the list, you'll understand my confusion. For example, but I had no idea was on this list. That's absolutely remarkable, and it's the most unsatisfying missing headline round of all time. So, just to wrap up, the answer is, I'm used to being labelled racist for loving our flag, but I'll sue councillor who called me a... Thank you. 10 minutes to 12 is the time. Back to the phones. Wayne is in Kingsbridge, the pizza king of Kingsbridge. What is your answer to this question, Wayne?
We need to shift our view of what retail is.
Yes.
If you rewind 30 years ago, 40 years ago, there would be one person going out to work, one person looking after the home. The time that people would go shopping, when I was a kid, Mum worked in a school part-time as mealtime assistant. She'd then go and do the shopping in the afternoon when the shop was open. That doesn't exist anymore for the vast majority of people. So shops need to be open when people are available, so opening earlier or later.
Oh wow! I often think that. I think of the key cutter at Piccadilly Circus Station, and the fact that you drop your stuff off, and the dry cleaners, you drop your stuff off there on the way to work, whereas the high street is still absolutely calibrated to the idea of people not being at work during working hours. I have never thought of that before. You are a genius. I would make you mayor, but you've already done that job.
Been there, done that. That was my 20s. Now I'm in my 30s and miserable. And it's the same thing with, like, we touched on bookshops. If bookshops did events of an evening when people weren't at work, they could go in and...
They do sometimes,
book reading,
don't they? Yeah.
Well, quite. And these are the sorts of shifts to what people are available for. Obviously, being in pizzas, we're only open in the evenings.
Yeah.
So it's easier for me to say than for other people adapting to when people are wanting to buy it. But nobody wants to buy my product at 2:00 in the afternoon when they're sat in the office. Or...
Are you sure?
Teaching, well, potentially, but there's not, the market for us doesn't exist. So being so heavily reliant on the tourism industry in this part of the world, we see it that in the height of the summer, I could probably open from 9:00 in the morning and I do a roaring trade.
Yeah.
But the moment that the kids go back to school, the population drops, people aren't off work, they are working, and their access to time has changed.
So our high street...
And we need to move with it.
Our high street is designed according to Victorian habits and a Victorian clock. I mean,
absolutely.
Even 19th century, you don't even have to go back to the middle of the 20th century. That is what it is designed for. The faded grandeur that I opened this hour talking about, particularly in seaside towns, is completely out of date, and it's never ever going to come back. But I'd never thought of it in terms of behaviours. You can revivify some high streets by recognising that the people who might use shops are not going to be using shops at the time, apart from their lunch hour, at the time when the shops are open. I don't know how that works, but it takes us back to the Southern European model, doesn't it? And the caller explaining that in Spain, and I noticed this in Greece this summer in the city of Kalamata, that shops... there are still a lot of shops, fewer boarded up shops, but the opening hours are completely different. Completely different.
And the places that are busy of an evening do things of an evening.
And the people that are working in offices are working different hours to the people who are working in shops, because the people in the offices are the customers for the people in the shops.
Yeah. And that's the change really that needs to happen.
That's really... What was your greatest achievement as mayor?
Surviving 2 years of doing it.
That'll do. No, that's fine. I was hoping for a Donald Trump style speech about all the wars you'd ended, and then perhaps get the name of them wrong. It's 11:54. I want to play you a little video now, because my feeling is that when historians of the future come to try to work out how the carnage in Gaza could have gone on for so long, and what is widely accepted now to be a genocide could have gone unchallenged for so long by so many, a large part of the answer, and I've thought this from pretty much the very start of the horrors, which of course began with the terrorist atrocity of October the 7th, the biggest mystery to historians of the future will be why there was not epic pressure put upon Israel to simply allow journalists into Gaza. Because when you're trying to work out how appalling, unconscionable things could have happened, the most obvious answer will be because nobody was sure they were happening, or we weren't sufficiently aware that these things were happening. So something else that perhaps we file under better late than never. The BBC, the AFP, the AP, that's the Associated Press, the Foreign Press, and Reuters, four of the biggest beasts in international journalism, have joined forces to make a video, and the audio works alone. And it's also got the mellifluous tones of Lord David of Dimbleby, one of my all-time favourite podcasters, one of my all-time favourite broadcasters, who has, of course, appeared on my Full Disclosure podcast. So I thought we'd take 2 minutes out of our day to actually play the whole thing, because I swear to you, 10 years from now, this will be the biggest question. Why did they not move heaven and earth? Why did we not move heaven and earth to get journalists into Gaza? Because if you're going to claim that anything that's coming out that hasn't been sanctioned or written by the IDF is Hamas propaganda, what are you left with when it comes to the truth? You need BBC, AFP, AP, Reuters, ITN, Channel 4, even LBC. You need people inside. Otherwise, horrors happen. So, better late than never.
History is told by those who report it.
The fears and the prayers of millions of people in this country.
Images of the D-Day landings showed the fight to free Europe from tyranny. One image of a child burnt by napalm brought home the horror of the Vietnam War.
It lights up a biblical famine.
In Ethiopia, journalism forced the world to confront the reality of famine.
Just after midday, the tanks rolled out of the square.
In Tiananmen Square, a lone man resisted.
He blocked their way again.
Defying the tanks.
The tank faltered, came to a stop.
There isn't a hamlet that's been spared. Homes abandoned, communities broke.
The world ignored Rwanda until reporters revealed thousands a day were being massacred. The report of a child's body washed up on a beach revealed the stark reality of the Syrian refugee crisis. In Ukraine, journalists from around the world risk their lives every day to report the suffering of the people. But when it comes to Gaza, the job of reporting falls solely to Palestinian journalists, who are paying a terrible cost, leaving fewer to bear witness. The Israeli government will not allow international reporters into Gaza to do their work and to document freely what they see. International journalists must now be allowed into Gaza to share the burden with Palestinian reporters there, so we can all bring the facts to the world.
Because who wouldn't want the facts, eh? Who wouldn't want the facts? And that is, unfortunately, a rhetorical question. That was Goosebumps, wasn't it? I'm not that kind of journalist. I don't have whatever it is that you need to be that kind of journalist. But my God, I value them, the people that actually do rush towards the war zones, because without them, we will not know what's happening. And when you don't know what is happening, that is when the very, very worst things happen. Why on earth would you not want journalists to be present? Would you not want cameras everywhere? Particularly in the context of just checking up on the claims that you make and the claims that you rely on to justify your actions. And so you can make a claim but not have it checked. I make no apology for the sombre tone that ends this hour, but I would remind you that we will begin the next hour in an altogether different place, because it is Thursday. It is 12 noon, and therefore very nearly 12 noon. I'll say that again. It's the real time, not just what a taxi driver told me. It's very nearly 12 noon, and it's definitely Thursday. All day, as my late father used to say. And that means it's Mystery Hour, your weekly opportunity to achieve the sort of satisfaction not ordinarily available anywhere else on your radio dial. And if you want to get your question on the board, then you can call me now, 0345 6060 973. If you're not familiar with this feature, it's a little bit different from what we do for the other 14 hours of the week, and in many ways better.
James O'Brien on LBC.
3 minutes after 12. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC, and just like the man said, Mystery Hour is now underway. Your weekly opportunity to achieve the sort of satisfaction not ordinarily available anywhere else on your radio dial. There's a prize as well. It's the only part of the week where we have a prize, or regularly have a prize. In fact, it's the only prize I can remember ever having given away. I used to give away some ice scrapers. We got some branded ice scrapers once, goodness knows why. And I used to give them away. I suppose they're becoming less necessary, are they, due to climate change? So I used to... Barrel scrapers. We could do some branded LBC barrel scrapers. Not mentioning any names. But no, I have a prize, a Mystery Hour board game, soon to be a collector's edition, or indeed a collector's item, because there's a new edition coming out, all new questions, entirely new game, much more pocket size, coming in a lovely tin. But the old one, the original one, the 1.0, that's yours if you submit my favourite contribution of the day. Full terms and conditions for that can be found at lbc.co.uk, and your Mystery Hour game news, and indeed your opportunity to get your hands on a soon-to-be collector's item edition of the original game, is at mysteryhour.co.uk. mysteryhour.co.uk. 4 minutes after 12. I think that's it. If you're not familiar with this, then you'll work it out pretty quickly. It's often funny. You would usually get a laugh out loud moment. Some weeks I guarantee that you'll get a laugh out loud moment. Some weeks I don't. No rhyme or reason to that. I just like to keep you on your toes. And we used to complain, or we used to resist repetition. But given that I haven't been able to tell the time correctly today, it's highly unlikely that I'm going to remember questions that were asked 10 years ago, let alone 2 weeks ago. So, that is almost it. The only other thing I'd remind you of is that we don't really like motoring questions. But as with almost all the rules that I've ever introduced on this programme, eventually they get forgotten and ignored. That one has sustained for an extraordinary amount of time, but only just, and there have been a couple of exceptions. But I don't like questions about motoring. 5 minutes after 12. Should we just crack on? Phone lines are open. If you try to get through and you don't, I've been doing this job so long, I forget sometimes that you haven't been here for the duration. So you ring in, you get an engaged tone, you think, oh, that's a shame, and then you never ring again. On Thursdays, and this is true every hour of every show, but on Thursdays in particular, we churn. Becca and Eleanor are, their little fingers are flying all over the keyboards and switchboards, and desperately trying to sort the wheat from the chaff. And there is, on Thursdays, quite a lot of chaff. There's quite a lot of chaff most days. Not mentioning Monday at all, the first hour of Monday's show, but it means that if you got an engaged tone 1 minute ago, you wouldn't necessarily get one now. What was the young lad's raindrop question from last week that I said we'd return to, and now that I've forgotten? Oh, Thin and Fat Rain. And can we remember what the boy's name was? Special prize for anybody who can remember what the boy's name was. See, you're doing it for me now. I love that. I've got Callum and Richard and others all saying, oh, and Matt. Isn't that nice? It's such a family affair, isn't it? We're all like one big happy family on Mystery Hour. So why are some raindrops fat and some raindrops thin? And I said I would ask that this week, and I forgot. Which, as I've mentioned a few times, is hardly surprising, given that I've lost my ability to tell the time. And Angie's remembering that as well. Loads of you. And I just need someone to remind me of what the little boy's name was, and then we'll be golden. We'll get it underway. Actually, can I read this one out from Barry? Barry wants to know whether we're taking questions on how to prepare swans for the table, to which the answer is categorically not, Barry. Just ask your local taxi driver. It is Sammy in Glasgow first. Sammy, question or answer?
Hi, James. Question, please.
Carry on.
I'm a taxi driver, by the way.
Ask him anything. Seriously, you should have come on last, and then you could have mopped up all the other questions.
Right. Okay, sorry, James. My question is, why is it that when you have an abandoned building, a derelict building, and, over a matter of days and weeks, you get trees and things like that growing out of it, but why is it when we live or inhabit a building, that never takes place?
Well, wouldn't the roof have to fall in first?
No idea. No, but some derelict buildings have got roofs on them. We still have trees growing out of them.
Well, what would you do? Was it a little girl, I think, not a little boy? It was Olivia, wasn't it? Do you know, I had the name Oliver in my head. So, anyway, sorry, I'm distracting myself, which is quite a gift. What would you do if you went home this evening and you saw a tiny little plant sprouting out of your kitchen tiles?
Do we ever see that, though? When does that ever happen inside the house?
You're good, you are. You've come straight back at me there with another question. I thought I'd solved it. I mean, Yes, it must.
My point is, Mother
Nature
takes over. Mother Nature takes over as soon as you leave within a matter of weeks.
You need a seed. We hoover, don't we? And we sweep. And we clean up, which means all the seeds that might potentially grow into... Because you get it on street.
What seeds?
Oaks, acorns and other seeds. Why are you laughing? This is obviously true. Think about the roads and the pavements. And you see plants growing out of those, don't you? Because we don't hoover them. We don't hoover them, and we don't have as many road sweepers as we used to have.
Yeah, but I'm sure there's some parts in your house that you miss when you're hoovering up.
So, yeah, but luckily there aren't any seeds there. Luckily, you've just had a lucky escape. There hasn't been any seeds in the bits that you've missed when you're hoovering up. This is the answer.
No, come on,
of course, it's the answer. There can't be another answer than the reason why there aren't any plants.
There's millions of homes.
Yes,
there's millions of homes.
And someone will have a plant. Someone will have a tree growing in their cellar or a plant coming in through their kitchen. But most of us don't because the seeds haven't been able to germinate.
I don't think so,
What
James.
else could it be? What else could it be?
Mother Nature, she comes in, she takes over.
Exactly, and she can't get in if
you rent.
Right, okay. Who's going to even know the answer to this if it's not what I've said? I mean, of course it's what I've said. The seeds don't have the time and the space to germinate and grow because we are there. We are living there. If we saw anything sprouting, we'd snatch it, we'd snip it, we'd get rid of it. And, of course, we won't see anything sprouting because unless you're observing extraordinary low standards of domestic hygiene, no seed is going to be able to get a grip on the dampness and the rest. But I'll put it on the board. Why doesn't Sammy have a tree growing in his sitting room? That's what you really want to know.
Exactly right, yeah.
Yeah, all right. Why hasn't Sammy got a whopping great tree growing in his kitchen? 10 minutes after 12 is the time. Why do you see foliage running wild in derelict and abandoned buildings, but not in inhabited buildings? Excuse me. Lauren's in Causden. Lauren, question or answer?
Question.
Carry on.
So I want to know why some dogs can see like what's on phone or a TV show or something like that. Like they can register what they're watching and some can't. Because I've got a dog and I've tried to show her videos of like other dogs or birds or whatever I'm watching, and she doesn't register what's happening.
Yeah, she might. She's just not interested. You're showing her the wrong stuff. Show her some football.
Maybe. Because I've seen some videos. I saw one of this dog watching Lion King and he was reacting to the lions and all of that.
Have you tried that on your dog? Have you tried the Lion King on your dog?
I've tried other films.
Well, what films have you tried? Do they feature animals?
Sometimes. Obviously, that's probably more what she's like.
You haven't done the animals, have you?
Maybe I need to try Lion King.
But I don't know that anyone's going to know the answer to why some dogs like TV and other dogs don't.
I don't know if it's maybe something in certain dogs' brains or their breeds. I don't know. That's what I'm asking.
If you put a picture of a bone or a lovely, delicious dog dinner on a script, the dog would notice and react.
I don't think mine would.
You've never
maybe
tried.
My dog isn't like
you've
a regular dog.
You've never tried, Lauren. I can tell from your voice.
Maybe I'll try it after this.
You've not done the research. You've not done the prep. There's no point show. So what have you shown her again? What sort of stuff on the screen?
Just whatever I'm watching.
Yeah, well, she's not interested in whatever. What are you watching? The Summer I Turned Pretty.
Oh, no. Not that.
Oh, OK. That's very big in our house at the moment.
Maybe a bit of Squid Games or something.
Okay, so you're showing your dog Squid Game? And the dog's not interested, but you're not showing the dog dogs. Dogs like dog. I'll put your question on the board because I'm polite. But I think it's a ridiculous question. Obviously, you need to do some testing and some research and find out whether your dog responds to the Lion King or pictures of... Put on One Man and His Dog. Is that still on? I used to love that programme. Liam's in Oxford. Liam, question or answer?
I've got a question.
Carry on, Liam. Do you have a dog?
No.
Okay.
Don't talk about that.
No, oh, really?
I'd love a dog. But
what?
Oh, I don't know. Too many vet bill horror stories.
It can be. No, you're not. I don't even want to think about it now. And I raised the subject in the first. I'd forgotten. I'd managed to put that out of my mind. Actually,
yeah, I've got a cat that hates me. If that counts.
How can you tell it hates you? Have you tried showing it some nice television programs?
Yeah, well, maybe.
Go on,
One man and his cat.
That's your blog, isn't it? What's your question?
Question is, I was on the coast last weekend, and they've got one of these beachfront saunas.
Oh, lovely. Where was that?
In Swanage.
How delightful. Go on.
Yeah, recommend it. Really nice. And on the recommendation of the young lady who was operating it, she said, go for a swim first.
and then come for a sauna and then go for a swim.
Yeah.
So we went in the sea, and it was pretty bracing.
Yeah.
And then we went and had 10 minutes in the sauna, and then we went back in the sea, and it was less bracing after 10 minutes in the sauna than it had been going in, fresh.
Yeah.
Is there an explanation for that? Why was it less of a shock after 10 minutes in the boiling hot than it was going in?
Was it less of a shock, or was it just a more pleasant experience because you were uncomfortably hot and you needed to cool down, which you didn't the first time you went in?
But that would have been more of a shock. If you're very, very hot and going into the cold water, it would have taken your breath away even more than not being overly hot.
Yeah, okay. But, I'm taking your word for it that it felt less cold the second time, even though you were hot.
Mm.
And we would expect it, if you're hot, to be more shocking when you jump into the cold.
That's exactly what we were all expecting.
Yeah, okay.
We all agreed that was a shared experience, that it was less of a shock the second time after the...
Why is
10
that?
minutes in the
Well,
sauna.
yeah, I like that. I quite like that question. I'm a big fan of saunas, actually. I keep thinking I might get one, but they're not cheap. They're cheaper than vet's bills. In fact, if it wasn't for the vet's bills, I'd probably have a sauna by now. But they do. They're lovely, aren't they? David Baddiel wrote a piece about saunas during lockdown. I must check in and see whether or not he's still using it all the time, because it could be one of those things you buy in a rush of blood to the head and then don't actually use it anywhere like as much as you thought you were going to. You're on. I'll find out for you. Why? So you're in the sea and it's flipping cold, and you get out, you go in a sauna, which is flipping hot, and then you come out of the sauna, which is flipping hot, and you jump back in the sea, which is flipping cold, but not as cold as it was before you went into the sauna. Go on, riddle me that. 0345 6060 973. Why does some dogs like TV and not others? Or is it TV shows? Can I adapt Lauren's question? Is it that some dogs... is it that dogs only like some TV shows, or is it that some dogs like TV? There you go, we got there in the end. Why are some raindrops thin and some raindrops fat? And why doesn't Sammy have a tree growing out of his sitting room floor? It's 12:15.
James O'Brien on LBC.
12:17 is the time. You do make me chuckle sometimes. So there's some text that came in the last hour that I thought I'd share with you. Mike's very cross with me for... he writes, he collects houses, James. It's very elitist of you to look down on Nigel Farage's working class hobby. It was either collecting houses, I think he's got 5, although it's hard to know whether his girlfriend bought one or not, because he said that he did, and then he said that she did, and then he said, stop asking me questions about my stamp duty arrangements, and make sure you focus on Angela Rayner's, or words to that effect. A quick shout out to Tony, who I think has messaged me by accident. Tony's looking for some cover for his spin class on Friday the 31st of October. I think you can see why I'm presuming he's made a mistake there. It's not necessarily a role I could easily step into, but if you are at a loose end on Friday the 31st of October, I've got no idea where it is, or indeed how you can get in touch with Tony, but you could perhaps provide cover for... Hopefully Tony's still listening and going, oh, I think I might have sent that to the wrong people. Let us know how you get on. And Joynal, I stole your joke. I'm very sorry. I didn't know Ali was going to come on and say that he was actually a taxi... Sammy, sorry, was going to come on and say that he was actually a taxi driver. So I stole your joke, because Joynal got in touch with me about 45 minutes ago to say, I'm a taxi driver, at your service, go on, ask me anything. Which I think a few people have made that joke today, but Joynal's is the one that caught my eye. Steve's in Crawley. Steve, question or answer?
A question, please, James.
Carry on, Steve.
Right. Believe it or not, the year you got adopted, I think you mentioned it yesterday, 72, I was an international 400-metre hurdler. Now, I should know the answer to this question, but I don't. Why, from the old days, the old tracks were 440 yards, yes? Do you remember that?
No, of course I don't. I was only born in 1972. I'm not going to remember how long the racing track was when I was a baby in a nappy. My earliest sporting memories are Steve Ovett and Sebastian Coe.
That was a long... Oh, blimey. God, they were young when I was running. Yeah. Anyway, when it moved from 440-yard tracks, we had one lap was 440 yards, then there was the 880 yards, which was 2 laps, and then there was a mile, which was 4 laps.
Right.
Why do we now have 400, 800, and 1,500? 1,500 is 3 3/4 laps of the track. Why didn't they just leave it as 4? I really don't understand why. I ought to. I've often wondered about it, but I've never thought who
how
to
close
ask.
is how many metres in a mile?
1,609 metres, 0.34. There you are. I did look that up. I hope you'll forgive me for that.
No, it's only answers you can't look up. You can look up questions.
All right.
Well done. So, I mean, it would make sense on every level to have a...
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, I'm going to have a go. I'm going to have a go at this.
Go on then.
Bear with me a moment. I'm just...
You haven't got an idea, have you?
No,
you haven't
of
got
course
an idea.
I haven't got the first clue, but I'm going to have a go at it anyway, because that's how I roll. So, in a stadium...
Yep.
The finish line...
You've got... Yeah.
So you're going to start... No, it doesn't work, does it? Because it's 400 metres. Yeah, the 400 metres. You start where the 400 metres starts. You do four 400s and you come out on 1,600. Yeah. So what moves, actually? The starting... But you don't start... Yeah, you start 1,500 in a line. You don't start staggered, do you?
No, you start 1,500 metre in a line, but 100 metres round the first bend.
Yeah.
So you do 3 3/4 laps, but still finish in the same place.
Well, you should ask an athlete.
Ah, funny.
Do you know anyone that used to be an international middle distance runner or hurdler?
Not quite. Well, yes, I do, but they don't know the answer either.
Well, I don't know who will. How good were you?
I was top junior in the UK for 2 years, and then got injured at 19, and that was the end of my career.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Is 1,500...
I held a world record when I was 15.
Did you? What for?
Yeah. I was the first 15-year-old ever to run under 60 seconds for the 400-metre hurdles.
Well, you were in the whole
world? It was
world?
in Athletics Weekly and everything. Yeah, it was in Athletics Weekly and everything.
Keith, come on, mate. Keith! Round of applause.
You can't Google it, I'm afraid. It's not there.
I don't care. You get a round of applause for that. We don't get many world record holders on the programme.
Thank you.
I think Keith broke a few world records when he was 15, but we can't talk about them on the radio.
Yeah. I think it lasted 6 months, and some little Welsh lad beat it.
Fantastic. Yeah, okay. Is 1,500 metres a metric mile?
Yeah. Well, they call it the metric mile, but it's not.
So that'll be part of the answer, won't it?
Possibly, but I say...
it might have something to do with Napoleon.
609.
Do you think Napoleon comes into it at all? The French? It's got a lot to do with the French?
I don't think he ran. I don't think he ran much.
Well, he could go under the hurdles. Do you know he wasn't actually that short, Napoleon? It was like wartime propaganda. All right, you're on. So, okay. So 440-yard tracks back in the day is now the 400 metres. So times that by 4. Why is it not the 1,600 metres, which would be 4 goes of 400? As opposed to the 1,500, which is 3 3/4. I don't know the answer. Maybe it's not even a very good question, but I like it. And Steve's a world record holder, so he gets it anyway. Thank you, Steve. 400, 1,500. See if I can remember that question by jotting down that shorthand. Jeff's in Epsom. Jeff, question or answer?
It's a question, James.
Carry on, Jeff.
Okay, right. So on certain men's jackets, on the inside, at the sort of waist level, there are open pockets, so there's like a patch on the inside with 2 vertical stitching going down with the bottom open, so you can't put anything in. If you put anything in, it just falls out the bottom. I've got probably 3 or 4 different jackets and an old ski jacket, and I just basically sewed up the bottom to make a proper pocket. So
did you?
For example,
you're very handy. You're very handy, Jeff.
Well, the old stitching is quite handy. Yeah. So I can't see what the purpose of them for.
What can I? Just checking. Do you know, I'm wearing a jacket today. I never wear a jacket in the studio. Why am I wearing a jacket today? I must have known you were coming. I haven't got... No, I've not got...
It's not all jackets. High street jackets. I bought a ski jacket probably 25 years ago. That's had it in there. I just stitched the bottom up. I recently bought a jacket from a high street shop, and on the right-hand side, at waist level, there's a patch, and it's just open. You can put your hand straight through it, and I can't see what the purpose of them. What's it there for?
It's not a label. It's not the label.
No, it's not a label. It's probably, if you can imagine your jean patch at the back of your trousers without the bottom being stitched.
It's on the inside of the jacket. It's on the inside.
Yep.
And it's a piece of cloth that has been sewn onto it for no apparent purpose.
Yes, sometimes both sides, sometimes on the right side. Yeah, absolutely no purpose whatsoever, unless you take it upon yourself to stitch the bottom up to make it become a contained pocket.
Hang on a minute. What did you say? Extra fabric? Is it no, I'm talking to Keith. Sorry, I should have made that clearer. Is it spare fabric? Like, you know, you get a button sometimes sewn in somewhere, so in case you lose a button, you can get a spare button. It couldn't be like... I've never heard of this before. I'm just relaying Keith's...
No, it's part of the jacket. It's just... It looks like a pocket.
But it's not sewn across the bottom?
No.
All right. I mean, I've never come across this, and I used to work in menswear, you know. So I thought when I saw the rough subject matter for this, I thought I'd be all right on this one, but I've not got a clue.
I've even asked the people when I bought the jacket, what's the purpose of it for? They don't know.
We had a night. Who was a fella last week? Where was he? Bury St Edmunds? No, someone had a clothing shop, didn't we? We had a bloke with a clothing shop last week, a lovely menswear shop. All right, you're on.
Okay, thank you.
Well, Jeff's jackets. That's all we want to know about. What's going on with Jeff's jackets? What's going on with Sammy's sitting room? Lauren's dog, Liam's sauna, and Steve's running races. Simon's in St Ives. Simon, question or answer?
Hello, James. Yes, it's a question. It's lovely to talk to you as well.
Thank you, Simon.
So annually, I go to Thailand where to visit my mother-in-law up in Chiang Rai.
Oh, lovely.
And there's a little bit of a scientific question if she's been vexing me.
Yeah.
So typically, late at night time, it is unbearably hot, so I have air conditioning on.
Yes.
So my question is it more cost-effective to heat a house from a cold or to cool a house down when it's hot?
That's interesting. I mean, you just need to do... There'd be some variables, wouldn't they?
There'll be some variables.
So I don't know how we do it. What would the laboratory conditions be? So we'd just do it for an hour.
Yes.
And because obviously the higher your heating is, the more the cost is going to be, and the colder your air conditioning is, the more your cost is going to be. So how are we going to compare apples with apples on that one?
Should we say typically if it's 0 degrees and you're heating a house and when it gets up to 25 degrees, say, or 20 degrees, or if it's...
But you're not going to go minus 20 on your air conditioning, are you?
No. But if it's say for sake of argument, it's 35 degrees, like 40 degrees, and you want to bring the temperature down to a livable 20 degrees.
So you're turning it up 10 or you're turning it down 10 from where we are now?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, what would cost more, the central heating or the air conditioning?
Yes.
One unit, though, is it? I don't again, though, because you've got central heating's like 10 radiators and air conditioning... It's in each room, isn't it? No, that's one air conditioning unit. Yeah. Yeah,
you're going to have air conditioning units all over the house, but let's say for sake of argument, one room.
Yeah, all right. So what would be costing me more, a heater or an air conditioner? Making it hot or making it cold? I like that question. I don't know if we'll get an answer because of all the variables, Simon.
Yeah, I know, but it's been vexing me.
Oh, we'll try.
A bit of a guilt trip when I have the air conditioning all night.
Yeah, I know what you mean, but... I do remember somebody telling me that they thought that people who expats or immigrants, as they'd be called if they weren't British, in foreign countries deserved the winter fuel allowance because the air conditioning can be so expensive in winter and in summer even. And I didn't think that was a stupid argument personally. 12:27 is the time. Thank you, Simon. Alistair is in Orpington. Alistair, question or answer?
Answer, James.
Carry on.
Okay, the business about the raindrops.
Keep falling on my head.
Right, it depends where they form and whether the main air mass, I suppose you call it, going up or down. Point is,
you're not filling me with confidence, Alistair.
Okay.
The main air mass or whatever you call it is going up or down.
Listen, and I will try and make it clear.
Thank you.
Okay, you get raindrops falling when you've got air, a lot of water vapour in it.
Yeah.
The air gets colder.
Yeah.
They then condense out.
Yeah, got it.
Right. If that happens very high up, and there's no up or down drafts, the drops are small, they'll fall down slowly, and if there's a lot of warm air below them, they'll start evaporating before they reach the ground.
Okay.
If you've got the air, the height at which they condense is a lot lower down, you've got a fair chance that even small drops will get there.
Right.
Okay. That's how you get small drops or not getting small drops.
What about the big drops?
Right. That's where you have what we call an updraft.
Oh.
In effect, there's an upward wind.
Oh, blowing them together?
Not blowing them together, but what it's doing, it's keeping them in the zone where the water's condensing for longer.
Oh. So they sort of just...
So they get bigger. And when you get a really strong updraft, like in thunderstorms, you can get really big drops.
Yeah. That's right.
And again, they can also go up quite high. And if it's below freezing, you can then get hailstones.
I love it.
And if you have monumental updrafts, very strong updrafts, like, I don't know, cyclones, tornadoes, all this extreme weather, and the rest of there's a lot of moisture vapor around, because the updrafts are so fast, you can get really big hailstones. Golf ball size, I think, have been recorded relatively frequently.
Oh, that's a lovely answer. It's a great answer. Well done. My early misgivings have been completely vanquished. What are your qualifications?
I did a PhD on rainfall and radar about 50 years ago.
Flipping out. How many people have done a PhD on rainfall and radar?
Not that many.
I could be getting Ray Liotta territory. I mean, genuinely, PhDs have to be unique, don't they? Pretty much.
You can go in a particular discipline, but
you literally did raindrops and radar.
Yes.
Well, can I ask why? What field were you in, or are you not allowed to tell me?
No, it's okay. This was a long time back, before, all these different satellites up there were commonplace.
Yeah.
And so to make radio waves of any frequency, TV, radio, whatever, go a long way, in effect, they were going quite a long way through the atmosphere.
So you need to find out what the relationship is between radio waves and radar and raindrops.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you one of these. Have a Ray Liotta. Seriously, I haven't given one out for a while.
I'm Ray Liotta,
it's a
and
PhD,
you're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. If you build it, they will come.
That's the highest honour. That's the highest honour I can bestow, Alistair. Do you have any other honours at the moment, apart from your PhD?
No, I'm
there
still
you go.
alive.
That'll do. Yeah, that's a win. You're winning. That'll do. 12:31 is the time. And Dominic Ellis has your headlines.
James O'Brien on LBC.
It is 12:34. Mystery Hour is underway. I'm going to do one, actually. Well, no, I'm just going to give you the answer and then a little mystery of who provided this answer. So I have to sort of rely on memory and the occasional moment of unpleasant seepage, which is not a phrase I should really be using at lunchtime on the radio. But sometimes the filth that now dominates Twitter, what used to be Twitter, seeps through into other areas of life, doesn't it? It might get reported or picked up. And here is, you may have thought that things were not as bad as I've sometimes told you, because you've got better things to do in your life than hang out on there with a bunch of racists. Here's an answer to a question about why there is so much overt racism on Twitter, and I want you to guess who provided the answer. Studies confirm a 50% plus surge in hate speech on X since Elon Musk's 2022 acquisition, with racist slurs up 42%. Key reasons are reduced moderation, trust and safety team layoffs, reinstatement of banned accounts, and this bit's important, algorithms boosting engagement on controversial content. Who do you think provided that answer to the question of why there is so much overt racism on Twitter these days? Do not let me go home without telling you the answer to that. 12:35 is the time. Questions in need of answers. We can cross off one. I have to warn you, when are you going to start? Yeah, okay. The Jeff's jackets are causing all sorts of trouble. All sorts of trouble. People are ringing in with answers to different questions. Becca and Eleanor just don't know what the question is. I just tried to show them. I said, no, it's a jacket, and I showed them the inside of my jacket. I said, imagine there's a piece of cloth there, and it's sewn in on both sides, but there's nothing under the bottom. And they said, you never guess what they said to me. They said, why? And I said, but that's the mystery hour question. So no one... Anyway, it could get quite messy, this. Let's find out. Lindsay's in Horsham. Lindsay, question or answer?
Answer, James.
Carry on.
I think Jeff's jacket is... it's to provide an opening for commercial embroiderers to get the machine in if they put a logo on a jacket.
So, on the other side... No. Why?
Because you wouldn't sew right through to the lining, if it's what I'm thinking of that he's trying to explain.
Yeah. I
Does that
don't
make
think...
sense?
No.
Sorry.
Because it's not. It's like a tube on the inside of the jacket. Like a pocket, but without the bottom having been stitched.
Yeah, but you can get into the inside of the jacket from the machine.
Yeah, but if it wasn't there at all, you could get into the inside of the jacket.
Right, okay.
Couldn't you? If I've understood, I'm trying to envision your jacket now. I've gone from Jeff's jacket to Lindsay's jacket.
I'm just thinking of pockets with holes in, and sometimes that's what they do for commercial embroidery. So...
I don't think that we can do that. Don't apologise, it's mystery hour. Every answer counts. If all of Jeff's jackets have got a logo directly in front of or behind the thing that he's telling us about, then we've got our answer.
Right, okay.
No, I'm asking you, not telling you. So there would for you to be correct, all of his jackets would have to have embroidery on them, on the outside.
No, it's only certain ones that...
What? Well, why would you have an embroidery access port if there wasn't any embroidery?
Because certain brands do it for the commercial embroiderers.
All right. I mean,
ski jackets probably would be one of them.
Okay. Right. I mean, it's possible. I don't think you're right, but I'm loath to be rude, or dismissive at least. I'd never be rude. Let's carry on. This could end badly. Adam's in Macclesfield. Adam, question or answer?
Answer, James, to the jacket pocket thingy question.
Go on, then.
Basically, what it is back in the day when people wore these beautifully brocaded vests, they wanted to display them, they had their pocket watch chained to them, to a fob, they had their wallet, just sat on an inside pocket, floating free, where any scrote could reach their hand in and grab it. So they had these little pockets sewn in.
But it's not a pocket. It's not a pocket.
They were open on both sides so that a ribbon could be fed through, back up on itself and buttoned closed, with a small line going up to the wallet, functionally exactly like a chain does on a wallet nowadays.
Mate, it's a ski jacket.
But it continues through to modern day, where, again, if you've got a high-end jacket, the same thing's through, that same thing's in place. It's to keep your pocket, your wallet, a chain to you, attached to you, so that if you are opening your jacket up for whatever purpose, say you're skiing, you don't want to lose your wallet.
It's not high. He's got it from a high street shop. It's not like bespoke. He had four jackets.
He didn't get it from a high street shop.
He said he's got a selection. He's got a ski jacket, a high street jacket.
High-end jackets. It'll be on a lot of them, but that's literally what it's for. It's just a holdover from that. It started off on suit jackets, moved into less formal wear, and you'll find them on the inside of things like constructor jackets for the building trade, ski jackets. It's literally just a point for you to chain your wallet to.
I just can't. But I've got a problem now. I'm tempted just to give you a round of applause and move on, but this happens on Mystery Hour sometimes. It's dominating the switchboard. Eleanor's got that look on her face, like she's not enjoying it very much. Arguing with people about what the question is. No, it's not your fault, is it? What are your qualifications?
I used to run a specialist menswear shop.
What's a specialist menswear? Do you mean a menswear shop?
Oh, I mean a specialist menswear shop. We used to provide...
Go on, careful. It's a family programme.
We used to... nothing like that.
Oh.
No, we used to provide things like safety suits, so things like fire-resistant clothing for building
kind of
sites.
specialist.
But we also engaged in... We had quite a large line of what they called foreman clothing, which was things like safety boots that looked like court shoes, or business suits that had fire-retardant lining. Or
what, for like spies and things?
No, for foremen who had to be on site and look like foremen and be bosses, but also had to comply with safety standards.
That's really interesting, actually. It's okay. I don't think you're right, because I don't see why they'd still be doing it now. I don't know anyone who's got their wallet on a chain. Do you?
I keep my wallet on a chain.
You keep your wallet on a chain?
Yeah.
Well, what's on your wallet that you attach the chain to? A little hook? Why are you talking as if I'm weird?
Like on a little lobster clasp.
What?
If you do...
Have you ever seen anyone with a wallet on the chain?
Grab your phone, pick up Amazon, put up wallet chains, and you will find hundreds of them.
Yeah, no, I'm not disputing their existence. I just don't think your average jacket manufacturer is going to be building... How old are you?
37. Well, I had to think about that.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say like 204 or something. I just got...
No, I'm not that old.
Because, I mean, where are you getting your clothes from? No, there's no way someone is making ski jackets to accommodate lobster clasps. I'm going to get this right. I'm going to make a fool of myself now because I've got that mood kicking in where I'm dismissing you, and that's usually when I turn out to be wrong. Oh, no. I just can't. I'm not having it. I've never heard of a wallet on a chain before. There's no way that all the jackets are being made to accommodate wallets on chains.
A leather strip with like a button on the end rather than a lobster clasp. The lobster clasp is to go on your belt buckle instead.
Oh, man. Well, I'm not giving you a round of applause, but I'll give you retrospectively if it turns out to be correct. I don't think it will do, though.
What? No round of applause?
Well, you sounded surprised you're carrying your wallet around on a chain and you think that's the reason why every jacket in Jeff's house has got a weird pocket thing that's not a pocket on it. How are you ever going to get a round of applause for that?
Well, what else am I going to do to get a round of applause off you?
You've got to prove that you're right.
How can I do that? I'm on the phone.
Well, I don't know, but everyone else has managed for the last 10 years.
Oh, fine, if you're going to set standards like that.
Stop it. It's 12:42. It can't be. Peter's in Potter's Bar. Peter, question or answer?
It's an answer.
Excellent.
Oh, I'm sorry, I can't stop laughing either.
Got to.
Yeah, well, mine's the pocket question, or not.
Make it stop.
It's not a pocket question because
All right.
it's not a pocket.
Do you keep your wallet on a chain?
No, absolutely not.
Have you ever met anyone who keeps, apart from the last fella? Have you ever met anyone
No.
who keeps? No.
No.
All right.
No.
Go on then.
Right. So it's quite simple, and
Don't
especially when
you
it comes
dare
to
say
it is. It's really simple.
Go on then.
It's an access point. So on a ski jacket at waist level, it's an opening that looks like a pocket. You put your hand in and you can access your other items and other clothing without having to take off your whole ski jacket, your gloves and everything else. It's an access point. And that's all it is.
But no, because my jacket is waist length. I can get my hands in my trouser pockets anyway.
Well, no, he said a ski jacket.
Yeah, a ski jacket's a waist length.
No, they're not. Ski jackets are not waist length. He said
jolly
the
well on.
pocket. He said the pocket was at waist length.
Yeah, but how long do you think ski
access-
jackets are? You can't go skiing in long jackets. You trip over.
Well, you wear your salopette.
Nice word. I love that word. That's one of my favourite words. Thank you for that.
There you go.
That's
and
nice.
you wear your ski jacket that comes over the top. And I have ski jackets that have an opening. You put your hand in and you get access to the rest of your pockets.
This is my favourite answer, but I've still not given you the round. So you'd unzip it halfway down. But
You
why
don't
do you
have to
need the
unzip
pocket?
anything.
No, you don't need a pocket. You just stick your arm in.
No,
Yes.
exactly, because it's an access point.
Why do you keep saying access point? Where do I put my hand in? I put my hand in where the zip is.
No, you don't. You don't have to undo your zip.
It's on the inside.
No, there's the access point on the
Stop
outside,
saying
James.
access point. It's on the inside.
No,
He
what
said
I
it was on the
understood.
inside. This is the worst mystery ever, and it's all your fault.
It's not my fault.
It is your fault.
It's not my fault. I have a ski jacket that has an opening from the outside that looks like a pocket.
Inside. It's on the inside.
Yeah,
But
he
even
said
then,
the
why?
flaps were on the inside. There was nothing on the inside because he's sewn it up. He said he sewed it up on the inside.
Yes.
So that goes somewhere though. It comes out.
Yeah,
of
it
the
doesn't.
jacket,
It does.
James.
There's no slit in the jacket. It's literally sewed inside like a tube, down one side and the other side. There's no hole on the outside. I used to have that. I had that once. But do you remember? You probably don't. I used to wear Oxfam coats as a very fashionable young Withnell and I fan, and an Oxfam overcoat, by which I mean, like a Dunn & Co., a traditional old fella's overcoat. And in fact, when I worked at Aquascutum, we still had this as well. You'd have your pocket, and you'd have a slit next to your pocket so you could put your hands in your trousers. That's what you're talking about.
Yeah. It has
not that.
an opening from the outside.
It's not that. It's stop
where you
saying
can
open. No. Stop now, everyone. Seriously, otherwise I'm going to go home.
James O'Brien on LBC.
It's 12:48, and I'm sorry. There's nothing I can do now. Everything's gone pockets crazy. Flipping Jeff. Can we ban Jeff and his jackets from the programme in future, please? No, I can't even agree. No wonder Becca and Eleanor were getting so stressed. They couldn't even work out or agree on what the question was. I've got a clear picture of what the question is. All right? A clear picture of Jeff's blooming jackets. And I think, and a mate of mine who actually works in this sector has now sent me a video, would you believe? I think Lindsay might have been right. I think it might be in case you want to get it embroidered, because, of course, not everybody wants to get it embroidered. But anyway, on we go. Sarah is in Orpington. Sarah, question or answer?
Answer.
Carry on.
Okay, I'm going to try and put your pocket to bed, so to speak.
Go on.
Right, okay. It's actually the pocket bag. So when you make a jacket, you'll have a seam potentially with a ski jacket, you'll have a zip on the outside.
Yeah.
And then you need a bag that your hand or your whatever goes into.
Yeah.
That pocket bag is then attached at the front to stop it from flapping around.
I've got absolutely no idea.
All the way. So
what you're
it's just
talking
basically on the inside of the jacket. It looks like a flap that goes all the way through.
Yeah.
But it's actually the pocket bag from the outside.
But then it would be sewn across. Then it would be sewn across the bottom.
Why would it need to be? Because it's actually just a bag that's opening from the outside in as a double layer.
I don't know what's happening.
Okay, So if you imagine a pocket bag is like a glove.
Yeah.
So it's like a mitten, so it goes round. That is put into the outside with a zip in.
Yeah.
So
So all Jeff's jackets must have zips.
On the outside? Well, not necessarily, but most of them will.
Right.
But you've got a pocket flap. It's not...
You keep saying pocket bag, and I don't know what it is. I don't know why you'd have it there. You've got a pocket.
Yeah. So the actual front of the jacket...
So it's like a reinforcement for a pocket on the outside.
But the outside of the jacket is not part of the pocket.
But there is no pocket.
It's on the outside.
This is... I can't do it anymore. I can't see what you're describing.
It's from... So if you have a pocket on a pair of trousers, for example...
Someone's texting me to say she's correct, which is not helping.
Yeah, I am. I know I'm correct because I'm a dressmaker. I know this. So when you have a pair of trousers...
Yeah.
And you've got inside... If you look inside your suit trousers...
All right.
You'll have like a white bag that's the front pocket.
Yeah.
Yeah?
That's the pocket.
That is the pocket bag, that white bit that flaps around inside your trousers.
Yeah, but that's sewn across the bottom.
It's not, is it?
Yes. Otherwise, the stuff would fall out of the bottom of my trousers.
No, your hand goes from the outside in to a bag.
No, it's not.
That bag is not sewn onto... You don't see the stitches on the outside of those trousers.
Yeah, but it's not that, because this is like this is a flap with a top and a bottom. It's on the inside of the jacket, and it's got a top.
Because your hand goes into the side of that.
So you think he's not noticed that it's a pocket?
On the outside?
Yeah, it's just a pocket, and Jeff has spent all these years and wasted a whole of Mystery Hour because he hasn't realised it's a pocket.
Yeah, exactly. It's a pocket on the outside.
So I've already banned him. What else can I do? I've already banned him from the programme. How else can I punish him?
I've always wondered why manufacturers don't stitch the bottom to make an internal pocket.
I don't think
that is exactly what it is.
I'm going to give you a round of applause because you're lovely, but I'm
absolutely right.
I don't think you are right. I don't think you're right because he can't have not noticed it's the inside of his pocket after all these years, can he? I don't think he could have done. Give Sarah a round of applause just because I haven't given one out for a while. Right, Scott's in Uxbridge. You sent me a video.
Hello, mate.
Hello, mate. I don't understand why you sent me a video of a ski jacket with a zip in it when Jeff's jackets don't have zips in them.
The pocket bag stuff has melted my brain.
Do you think she was right?
She was not right. I said she's right to the woman earlier.
Well, oh, Lindsay's right.
Lindsay's right. So
Scott is the... Shall I touch... Do you want an advert while you're here?
Yeah, go for it.
Scott is the proprietor of Balcony Shirts in Uxbridge for all your embroidering needs. He'll sort you out for your work kit. He does sports kit. He does everything. You go in, you select your garment, and he'll stick some embroidery on it for you. And you do all sorts. No job too small or large.
Bless you.
There we go.
Bless you.
London, Paris, and Uxbridge. Go on.
So loads of jackets, they have a zip. Like, it's almost hidden in a lot of places. It's hidden zip on the inside that looks like a pocket. But if you find the zip and you open it, it is just an entry point, like Lindsay was saying. So you can get in and you can embroider or print stuff on the jacket without going through the lining. And most people don't find them. But if you do find them, it looks like a pocket. Yeah, and sometimes it just falls all the way through and is open at the bottom.
And it won't be a zip? Sometimes.
It won't be a zip, so you have to rescind that lady's round of applause.
No, that was just politeness. That was just politeness. So I'm not giving you one either. You've had an advert. I'm going to go back and give Lindsay one.
Give Lindsay another one.
Well, she didn't get one the first time.
Oh, okay. Oh, she needs one.
So I'm going to give Lindsay one. Thank you. I've got no idea now. Well, bless you. I'll see you soon. Stay safe. Cheers. It's always weird when people you know in real life ring in. Actually, I think we rang him, but he sent me the video, which is the worst thing you can do on the radio. Sent me a video. I'm on the radio. Round of applause for Lindsay. 10 shows ago. I'll put the video on Blue Sky. I'll get Scott's permission first. He probably owns the copyright. How much longer have we got? As long as that. Sean's in Peterborough. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good.
All right. Okay. What? We got any jacket?
I thought I'd give you a break from pockets.
Yeah.
The 1,500-metre question.
Go on, then.
I think it all stems from the fact that as the sport globalises, it's to do with the modern Olympic movement.
Yeah.
And that comes from France.
Yes.
So it's metric, basically. And as I think we moved metric as well, that's what I've always thought anyway.
So it's half the 3,000. Are you going up in units of 5?
Yeah,
well, no, you're not, because 400. Why 400, though?
Well, I think that's probably down to track design, because I think they used to have different sized tracks in different countries. Then you've got countries like the UK and America working in imperial, but probably on the continent they had a different sized track. But when the Olympics is happening, you've got to bring it all together. And I think that's why it'd be a 1.5 kilometre race, then a 3 kilometre race, then a 5 kilometre race, because it's all kilometres after
5 kilometres, yeah, so 440 yards.
on the end of it. But.
So 400 metres probably should be 500 metres, but shouldn't
it?
But it's not, because it's 100, and it's 4 lots of 100, 4 by 4, 400. So I think the answer will be, at some point, because somebody said so, which is always a sort of kryptonite for Mistral.
Yeah.
Why does this happen? Because at some point somebody said so. That's how we're going to do it. We're going to do...
I think one of the biggest influences is metric.
Yeah, I think you might be right.
Trying to be precise.
But then Steve would say, why not 1,600? He had a world record once, you know.
Yeah, they run the 1,600 in America and they call that the metric mile, whereas we call the metric mile. Yeah, but it's not really run outside of America.
We go 400, 800, 1,500.
Yeah, it's crazy, but I think it's purely down to metric.
And middle distance and long distance following the...
Also, you need a race that's close to those things because of the energy systems. So you don't really want to do a 500-metre race because lactic acid would be crazy then. So you've got to cater for the type of athletes.
All right.
So
right. Qualifications?
I'm a 400-metre hurdler as well.
Are you?
I've done decathlon. So, yeah, it bothered me, the 1,500. I was like, why are we doing this? Why isn't it just 4 laps?
Yeah.
But yeah, I was pretty good for hurdles, and I've done it. I'm still doing it.
There's three of us on the show today who are very good hurdlers. You, me, and Steve. Yeah, small world, isn't it?
Nice.
One of us is lying.
All right.
have a round of applause.
Cheers.
Thank you. Dan's in Epsom. Question or answer? Have we got Dan in Epsom? Apparently
Hello,
not.
yes.
What?
How are you doing? You're right.
Yeah, I am, but this isn't going to work. Seriously, that phone's all over the shop, isn't it? Anyway, pockets. Who am I going to give a Mistral ball game to today when I hate everyone? It's impossible. I'm not giving it to Jeff, that's for sure. I could give it to Lindsay. Well, Sarah was nice, but she got a round of applause. I'm not giving it to Scott. He can jolly well buy one. My kids need shoes. I'm going to give it to Lindsay. Lindsay gets it. And Jeff, you're banned. Seriously. Never ring me again on any subject under the sun. Speaking of which, I like this from Pete. I love the fact that you can debate and articulate some of the world's most complex geopolitical concepts. But today, you are flummoxed by the refined nuances of a pocket. It wasn't a pocket, though, Pete, was it? Clever clogs. If it was a pocket, it would have had a stitch across the bottom, but it didn't. It was like a weird tube. If you missed any of today's show, you can listen, and frankly, who can blame you? You can listen back on Catch Up on Global Player and the LBC app, where you can stay up to date on all the top stories and opinions, put your news categories in the order you want, and get completely flummoxed by the concept of a pocket that's not a pocket. Rewind live radio, if you think I'm exaggerating, and even listen to a range of podcasts. So download the official LBC app for free now from your app store. Tom Sawbrick with you at 4. Now it's time for Sheila Fogarty.
I've got one here, look.
I know what that's for.
Tell me, because I don't know.
I know what that's for. I know what that is for.
This is the back of my rucksack.
Yes, thank you.
It's got one of those...
You can tell you've done this before.
Go on.
Sheila's on the radio. You've got a thing on the back of your rucksack, which is what Jeff has got on the inside of his jacket.
Yeah.
But that is so that when you've got at the airport and you've got your suitcase with the handle pulled up out of it,
I can slide it down the handle.
You can slide it over the handle. Oh,
thank you.
My self-image is restored.
I have never known what that's for.
Thank you very much.
Gosh.
My Mistral mastery is restored. But it doesn't help with Jeff's jacket.
James O'Brien on LBC.